Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something a little different. A time of jungle heat, endless marches, and parachutes packed with both hope and dread. We're diving into what life was really like for American paratroopers during the Vietnam War. Forget the Hollywood slow motion jumps and the triumphant music swelling in the background. The truth is, you probably wouldn't last a single day. So, before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that low background hum, and get comfortable. Because you've just woken up in Vietnam, sometime in the late 1960s. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so is the war. Your bed is a damp patch of ground under a mosquito net that doesn't really work. Your boots are wet before you even put them on. And the air feels like soup you never ordered. There are no soft pillows, no cool breeze from an air conditioner, and definitely no hotel breakfast waiting for you. Just the jungle pressing in, the smell of gun oil clinging to your uniform, and the sound of helicopters droning in the distance like mechanical insects that never sleep. This is where your day begins, and it only gets harder from here. You blink awake to the sound of the jungle, and it isn't the gentle bird song people imagine when they picture a tropical paradise. It's 1,000 noises at once, none of which are soothing. Crickets scream so loudly it feels like the air itself is buzzing. Somewhere nearby, a monkey shrieks like a child having a nightmare. And closer still, mosquitoes hum with the persistence of tiny chainsaws. There's no silence in Vietnam. The jungle never shuts up. It just changes volume. Your bed is the ground, and the ground is not on your side. You cleared a patch of earth last night with a small entrenching tool, scraped away some leaves, and stretched your poncho liner over it. That was the theory. In practice, it rained. It always rains. The tropical downpour turned your sleeping area into a shallow mud pit. Your poncho liner is soaked through, your clothes are damp, and your boots, well, you don't even want to check. The smell of mildew is permanent now, baked into every piece of fabric you own. You roll onto your back, and the first thing you notice is the weight in your chest. It's not emotion, it's humidity. The air presses down like a wet towel draped across your lungs. Breathing feels like work. Every inhale comes with the taste of wet soil, rotting vegetation, and the faint metallic tang of gun oil that lingers in your nostrils because your rifle never leaves your side. You reach for your helmet, which you used as a pillow. It's uncomfortable, sure, but it's the only option you have. A helmet is at least solid, and if a rat decided to run across your face in the night, the steel bowl gave you some protection. Rats are everywhere. They come out after dark, squeaking and chewing through ration boxes, running over sleeping bodies, treating your camp like their personal buffet. Some are small. Others are the size of cats, bold enough to stare you down while gnawing at a wrapper from last night's sea rations. You swat one away, but you know it'll be back the moment you close your eyes again. The first real sound of the day isn't an alarm clock. It's your sergeant's voice, low but firm, telling everyone to get up. You don't need encouragement. You're already half awake, shifting in the mud, swatting at mosquitoes, counting the minutes until dawn. The sky isn't even bright yet, but the air is already hot. Sweat beads on your skin before you sit up. The fabric of your fatigues clings to you. They're wet, not just from the rain, but from constant perspiration. In Vietnam, you're never dry. You either drip from rain, sweat, or both at the same time. You push yourself upright, and your knees protest. Yesterday's march left them stiff, and your back aches from hauling gear that weighs as much as you do. You rub your eyes, and your hand comes away with streaks of dirt. You didn't bother washing before sleep. There wasn't water to spare. The only water available is iodine treated, tasting like swimming pool chemicals mixed with rust. You drink it anyway, because the alternative is dysentery, and you've already seen what that does to a man. It empties him faster than the jungle ever could. You check your boots. They're wet inside, of course. You can hear the squish before your foot even goes in. You slip them on anyway, because you don't have time to let them dry. You never do. Trench foot is always waiting for you, lurking with every step. Your socks, if you have dry ones left, are the most valuable thing in your pack. But today you don't. So you slide your feet into damp socks, slide those into damp boots, and stand up in the muck. Your toes are already soft and pale from constant soaking. They'll rub raw by the end of the day, and there's nothing you can do about it except keep walking. The smell of the camp is a cocktail no cologne company would dare to bottle. It's gun oil, sweat, wet canvas, unwashed bodies, mildew, and the faint reek of yesterday's latrine hole. There's no escaping it. Everyone smells the same, and after a while you stop noticing, until you catch a fresh whiff that makes you gag. Hygiene is a luxury. Baths are fantasies. Soap is something you remember from another lifetime. Here, filth becomes part of you. You glance around, and you see faces just as tired as yours. Some men are already lacing boots. Others are lighting cigarettes with shaky hands. Cigarettes are as common as oxygen out here, pulled from green army-issued packs or traded like currency. Everyone smokes, even the ones who didn't before they got here. The nicotine takes the edge off the nerves, gives you something to do with your hands, fills the silence when the jungle feels too loud. You light one too, and the first inhale burns your throat, mixes with the taste of iodine water still lingering in your mouth. It's not pleasant, but it's routine. You take inventory of your gear because you have to. Helmet, rifle, ammunition, canteens, entrenching tool, extra socks that are not actually dry, poncho, mosquito net, claymore mine, grenades, bayonet. Each item weighs less on its own, but together they add up to a crushing load. Your rucksack feels like it's been filled with bricks, and you haven't even started marching yet. The straps bite into your shoulders, and you haven't stood up all the way. The jungle itself greets you like an enemy. Every leaf drips water onto you. Every vine tangles around your feet. Every branch snaps back into your face. Ground is uneven, muddy, slippery. Roots jut out like tripwires waiting for your tired legs. The air hums with insects that seem bred in some laboratory of annoyance. They don't care about bug spray. You could bathe in repellent and they'd still find a way to bite through it. Leeches wait in the grass, silent and invisible until you feel the slow trickle of blood down your ankle. You peel one off, disgusted, and know it won't be the last today. The sun pushes over the horizon, and with it comes the true heat. It's a heat that doesn't build up gently. It slams into you, thick and wet, turning every movement into work. The jungle canopy traps it, holds it close, and refuses to let it out. You sweat more than you thought possible, and yet you're still thirsty. You take a sip from your canteen, force yourself to ration it. You don't know when the next refill will come, and the thought of running dry is worse than the bitter chemical taste. Breakfast isn't waiting on a table. It's in a can, dented and heavy, with a label that's already peeling. See Rations. They're the only option. You pry one open with your knife, and inside is something that looks like dog food and tastes worse. Beef and potatoes, spaghetti and meatballs, ham and lima beans. The menu changes, but the disappointment doesn't. You eat quickly, not because it's good, but because you need the calories. You chew, swallow, chase it with a sip of iodine water, and try not to think too hard about it. Sometimes you heat it with a small chunk of C4 explosive, because that's the fastest stove you have. Tear off a piece, light it, balance your can on top. It smells like burning chemicals, but at least your food is warm. Today you don't bother. There isn't time. The jungle morning doesn't give you gentle starts. It gives you urgency. Every sound could be something. Every rustle could be an enemy. Every shadow could hide danger. You live with it constantly, the low thrum of fear beneath your ribs. You try not to think about it, but it's there. Always. You pack up your gear, sling your rifle, and prepare to move. Your body aches, your eyes burn from lack of sleep, your stomach turns from the rations, but you stand anyway, because the only alternative is to be left behind, and no one wants to be left behind. This is waking up in the jungle. It's mud in your boots, sweat in your eyes, insects in your skin, and weight on your shoulders. It's a morning that doesn't refresh you. It just happens to you. And before you even start the day, you're already exhausted. The sun isn't even high yet, but the heat is already everywhere. It isn't the dry kind you might know from deserts or summers back home. This is a wet, heavy heat that doesn't just sit on your skin, it seeps into you. The moment you start moving, your uniform clings like a wet rag that never comes off. Every thread is damp, sticking to your back, your chest, your thighs. You shift your gear and the straps dig deeper, biting into flesh that's already raw from yesterday. There's no escaping it. The air feels less like something you breathe and more like something you have to chew. Every inhale drags hot moisture into your lungs, and every exhale feels like blowing steam into a sauna that's never been cleaned. Sweat starts pouring almost immediately. Not the light sheen you'd get jogging in the suburbs. This is a constant stream, dripping from your forehead, running into your eyes, stinging with salt. It soaks your shirt, fills your socks, and slides down your spine in rivulets that never stop. You wipe your face with a sleeve, but the fabric is already soaked. It doesn't dry. Nothing ever dries. Everything you own carries the smell of old sweat mixed with mildew, a stench so strong it becomes part of you. And in this climate, the smell doesn't fade. It grows. It ferments. It becomes the air you live in. Your helmet traps heat against your head, the steel baking like a frying pan left out in the sun. Your hair sticks to your scalp, itchy and wet. You want to rip it off, but you can't. You don't go without a helmet. The jungle is unforgiving, and so are the rules. So you wear it, sweat dripping down into your eyes, sliding past your ears, pooling in the collar of your uniform. Even your rifle heats up. The black metal absorbs the sun until it feels like holding onto a stove handle. You shift your grip, but there's no relief. The weapon is an extension of you, and it doesn't care if it burns. The jungle doesn't offer mercy. The canopy overhead filters some light, but it also traps the heat. Beneath it, the air turns stagnant, thick, unmoving. There's no breeze here. Wind doesn't cut through the trees. It just dies before it reaches you. You walk through walls of steam rising from the ground, left over from last night's rain. Every step sinks into mud that seems to radiate warmth from below, as if the earth itself is sweating. Your boots squelch with every move, each footfall a reminder that you're never dry. The socks inside are wet sponges wrapped around your feet, and you know the skin beneath is softening, breaking down, waiting to blister. You shift your toes, feel the squish, and force yourself to keep going. The insects love it. They thrive in this heat. Mosquitoes dive bomb your skin in clouds, ignoring the repellent like it's seasoning. They bite through fabric, leaving welts that swell and itch until scratching makes them bleed. Ants march across your arms, crawling under your shirt, biting when you brush them away. Leeches cling to your legs, fattening themselves silently until you peel them off, and watch the blood keep flowing because the bite never seals right away. Every creature in the jungle wants a piece of you, and in this heat, they always get it. Your body fights back in its own ways. Sweat drips into your boots until your feet slosh. Salt stings your eyes until they blur. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth, begging for water. You raise your canteen, take a cautious sip, and grimace at the taste. It's warm, metallic, with a chemical bite from the iodine tablets. It doesn't refresh you. It doesn't cool you. It just keeps you alive. You want to gulp it down, but you don't. You can't. Water is rationed, and no one knows how long until the next refill. Dehydration creeps up faster than the enemy. One moment you're walking, the next you're dizzy, stumbling, wondering if the buzzing in your ears is insects or your own body shutting down. Every piece of gear adds to the misery. The rucksack presses down like a sack of hot bricks strapped to your spine. The straps dig trenches into your shoulders, already sore and reddened. Your web belt carries grenades, ammunition, a bayonet, canteens, all of it banging against your hips with each step. The weight never leaves you. It's as if you're carrying the jungle itself on your back, dragging it with you wherever you go. And as the day stretches on, the heat makes that weight double. Your body feels heavier, your legs slower, your breath shorter. Your mind doesn't get a break either. The heat isn't just physical, it plays tricks. You think about shade, but the shade doesn't help. You duck under a tree, and it's just as hot, only darker. You imagine cold water, a shower, air conditioning, ice cubes clinking in a glass. But that's fantasy. Here, there's only more sweat, more steam, more suffocating air. The heat wraps around your thoughts, smothers them, makes every decision foggy. You stop caring about comfort. You stop caring about anything except putting one foot in front of the other and praying your legs don't give out. Your uniform, meant to protect you, turns into an oven. The long sleeves, the heavy fabric, all designed to shield from insects and the environment, just trap the heat closer to your skin. The salt stains crawl higher each day, white rings spreading across the green like maps of exhaustion. You loosen your collar, roll your sleeves, anything to let a little air in, but it doesn't matter. The sweat soaks everything, and the jungle just laughs. When the sun climbs to its peak, the world turns into a furnace. The air shimmers. Not that you can see it through the trees, but you feel it. Your body slows down whether you want it to or not. Every step takes more effort. Every breath more strength. Some men stumble, eyes glassy, lips cracked, words slurring. Heat exhaustion doesn't announce itself politely. It drops you where you stand. You've seen it before. Someone falls and you have to half carry, half drag them while the rest of the squad keeps moving. There's no time to stop. The jungle doesn't care if you're cooked. The mission keeps going, and so do you. The worst part is knowing it won't end. You can tell yourself the rain will cool things down, but rain only adds steam. You can dream about nightfall, but nights in Vietnam don't bring relief. The heat stays, clinging to you even in darkness, mixed now with the chill of damp clothes that never dry. You lie down to sleep, body soaked, gear soaked, ground soaked, and you wake up no better than you were before. The heat never leaves. It follows you into your dreams, presses down on you while you sleep, and greets you the moment you open your eyes again. You march, you sweat, you suffer, and the day stretches long. The jungle hums, the insects feast, and your body becomes part of the landscape, another thing being slowly cooked under the relentless sun. This is the Vietnam heat. It doesn't break. It doesn't fade. It just waits for you, day after day, until you forget what it felt like to ever be cool again. You look down at what you're wearing, and it's supposed to be your protection. The jungle uniform, officially called fatigues, the same olive green shade everyone has, the same set issued to every paratrooper who stepped off a plane into this place. In theory, it's built to survive the heat, resist the bugs, and hold up under weeks in the field. In practice, it's a trap, a swamp made of fabric, a prison you walk around in. Your second skin, only itchier, heavier, and determined to break you down one thread at a time. The fabric is thick, rough cotton, designed by someone who probably never stepped foot in Southeast Asia. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't wick sweat. It just soaks it up and holds it there, pressed against your body like a sponge strapped to your chest. Within an hour of wearing it, the shirt clings to you, dark with sweat, plastered against your skin, until you can see the outline of your ribs when you peel it back. By midday, salt stains bloom across the seams, white lines creeping outward like the jungle has marked you as its own. You can roll the sleeves, but then the insects find their way to your arms. Mosquitoes don't care about military design. They drill through skin, fabric, anything. So you button the cuffs, cinch them tight, and feel the circulation cut off at your wrists. It's a choice between itching from bites or itching from sweat. Either way you itch, constantly, your trousers are just as cruel. Heavy, baggy, sagging with every step as they soak up mud and water like paper towels. The fabric rubs your thighs until the skin underneath burns raw. And by the end of the day, walking feels like dragging sandpaper between your legs. You could try adjusting them, but it never helps. The sweat makes them stick, the mud makes them heavy, and the leeches still find their way in. Pull one off, and there's another waiting. Blood streaks your socks, and the cloth clings tighter. Then there are the boots. Jungle boots, they call them, but the jungle eats them alive just as fast as it eats you. They're supposed to drain water with little vent holes in the sides, but all that really means is mud, and insects have an easy entrance. You stomp through swamps and rice paddies, and your boots fill with water faster than they drain. You tip them over at night, watch a stream of brown liquid pour out, and still your socks are soaked before morning. The soles are hard, the arches flat, and after a day of marching, your feet feel like you've been walking barefoot across gravel. Your toes go soft, skin peeling, nails turning black. Trench foot waits for you like an enemy, and the boots don't care. They just keep rubbing, blistering, grinding your skin until it feels like your bones are bruised. You think about socks constantly. Socks are your currency. Dry socks are more valuable than cigarettes, more precious than chocolate, more useful than money. The army tells you to change them often, to keep your feet dry. But how do you keep anything dry here? The moment you change, the new pair is wet again. You stuff the damp ones in your pack, hoping they'll dry, but they never do. They rot in there, festering, until you're carrying around a bag of mildew that follows you like a curse. Then there's the gear strapped on top of all this misery. Your webbing harness, crisscrossing your chest and back, loaded with pouches that never sit comfortably. Ammunition boxes slam against your ribs with every step. Grenades dangle near your hips, knocking against your thighs. A bayonet jabs your side when you crouch. The weight digs into your shoulders, your collarbone, your hips. Straps chafe until the skin peels, leaving red grooves that sting with every drop of sweat that seeps into them. And the helmet. Always the helmet. A steel pot that sits heavy on your head, lined with a strap that rubs your chin raw. It catches sweat, funnels it down your temples, and bakes your scalp like an oven. At night, you use it as a pillow. In the day, you use it as protection. Either way, it's never comfortable. The uniform doesn't just hurt, it betrays you. The moment you sweat, the fabric darkens, giving away your position. The mud stains never wash out. The smell becomes part of you. Sweat, mildew, gunpowder, and fear, all ground into the fibres until even when you take it off, you still feel it clinging to your skin. And the bugs love it. The fabric holds body heat, draws them in, gives them the perfect landing strip to find you. Fleas crawl in, ticks latch on, ants march up your legs like they own the place. You slap, scratch, curse, but they never stop. You look at your hands, and even your gloves don't help. They're stiff, soaked, and offer no relief. They rub your palms raw, add blisters to blisters, and the leather smells like rot within days. You try to wipe your face, but all you get is more dirt, more salt, more stink. Every paratrooper looks the same. Same green uniform, same sagging boots, same stains, same misery. You could line up 100 of you and tell exactly how long each man has been in country, just by the shade of his fatigues. Fresh ones are sharp, stiff, still carrying that faint smell of supplied depot dust. A week later, they're already darker, softer, stretched in places they shouldn't be. A month in, they're torn, patched with tape or field stitching, stained with mud that never washes out, and hanging off you like rags. The jungle eats the uniform, thread by thread, until it matches the landscape. And there's no replacement waiting in a closet somewhere. Resupply isn't guaranteed. You wear the same set day after day until it falls apart, and then you patch it, tape it, beg for another, or steal one if you have to. Laundry means dunking it in a river, slapping it against rocks, and praying it dries before mould takes over. Usually it doesn't. You just put it back on, wet, stiff, and colder than you are. Within minutes, the heat soaks it again. It's a never-ending cycle. Soak, rot, stink, repeat. You try to imagine what it would feel like to wear clean clothes again. A fresh shirt that doesn't stick to you. Pants that don't chafe. Socks that don't smell like disease. Boots that don't squish. It feels like remembering a dream. Something that existed once, but doesn't anymore. Out here, the uniform is part of you. Fused to your body, shaping how you move, how you think, how you survive. And when the day finally ends, you don't peel it off like normal clothes. You collapse in it, sleep in it, wake in it, and march in it again. The uniform is your shelter, your burden, your punishment. It doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't care about your skin. It doesn't care about you at all. Out here, it belongs to the jungle. And so do you. The morning doesn't greet you with the smell of bacon or the sound of a coffee pot percolating. It greets you with the taste of metal and the smell of wet canvas. You're sitting cross-legged in the mud, helmet balanced beside you, rucksack digging into your spine, and you're staring at the only thing standing between you and hunger. A dented can, green, stamped with block letters, the kind of packaging that makes cardboard look luxurious. Sea rations, your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner. Sometimes your midnight snack when you can't sleep. They come in boxes the size of bricks, and they taste about the same. You tear one open with your knife, careful not to slice your hand because medical help is as far away as clean water. Inside, you find a small collection of cans, some matches, toilet paper, a pack of cigarettes, maybe a packet of instant coffee that tastes like mud strained through a sock. The cigarettes are the first thing everyone looks for. If you're lucky, you get Lucky Strikes, Chesterfields, maybe Camels. If you're not, you get menthols, and suddenly you're trading like a stockbroker to get something smokable. Tobacco is the closest thing to comfort you'll find in this box, but the food, that's the real prize. Except it isn't. You pry open the lid, and you're greeted by the smell of meat product that looks like it was scraped off a factory floor in 1952. Beef and potatoes, ham and lima beans, spaghetti and meatballs, pork slice with juice. The names sound fine on paper. In reality, each one is a gamble between tolerable and catastrophic. The ham and lima beans are universally hated. Men gag just looking at them. They call it ham and motherfounders. If you pull that can, you suddenly become a very generous trader, offering it to anyone foolish enough to take it off your hands. You scoop a forkful of whatever sludge you've drawn today, and the texture is always wrong. Too soft, too slimy, too chewy in places where chewing feels like punishment. The colour is a dull greyish brown, the universal shade of military cooking. You chew, swallow, and chase it with a sip from your canteen. The water doesn't help. It tastes like metal, chlorine, and regret. You hold your nose and keep going. Not because you're hungry, though you are, always, but because you need calories to carry the weight on your back, to march through the jungle, to keep your body moving when your mind wants to collapse. Sometimes you get crackers in a little waxy package. They're supposed to replace bread. They're harder than roofing shingles and taste like drywall. You snap one in half and dip it into your can of mystery meat, hoping it will soften. It doesn't. It just adds crunch to mush. Other times you get a small can of peanut butter or cheese spread, both of which come out like paste. You smear it on the cracker and bite down, and your mouth dries instantly. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth, and suddenly water feels more necessary than ever. And then there's the instant coffee. Little brown crystals sealed in a packet, meant to dissolve in hot water. But hot water isn't part of your morning. You rip it open, dump it into your canteen cup, pour in cold iodine-flavoured water, stir with a stick, and drink the result. It tastes like bitter dirt mixed with chlorine, but it's caffeine. It keeps you awake when your body wants to sleep, and it gives you the illusion of normal life, of mornings before work, of kitchens and mugs and clean shirts. That illusion lasts about 3 sips before the taste brings you crashing back to reality. If you're really desperate for warmth, there's always the trick. Tear off a small chunk of C4 explosive, the same stuff used to blow holes in the jungle, light it, and balance your canteen cup over the blue flame. The chemical burns hot and steady, perfect for heating your rations. Perfect, that is, until you remember you're cooking breakfast with something designed to kill tanks. The smell of burning chemicals mixes with the smell of canned meat, and for a moment you wonder what your stomach will think of this combination. But you eat it anyway, because there's no choice. Around you, the rest of the squad eats in silence, each man focused on his own can of despair. A few crack jokes, calling the meal gourmet army cuisine or 5-star jungle dining. Laughter helps. It makes the sludge go down easier. But mostly, everyone just chews, swallows, lights another cigarette, and stares at the ground. Breakfast isn't an event. It's a chore. Something to check off before the real work begins. Sometimes you get lucky. A care package from home arrives, and for a brief moment, the world brightens. Inside, there might be cookies, chocolate bars, maybe a jar of jam, or a can of fruit cocktail. Sweetness is a miracle here. Sugar tastes like sanity. You tear through it greedily, share if you're generous, hoard if you're not. And then it's gone, replaced by the same olive green cans waiting in the next box. You learn to make games of it. Trade rations like currency. A can of spaghetti might be worth 2 packs of crackers. A tin of peaches is priceless. If you pull out ham and lima beans, you might as well be offering someone a curse. You swap, haggle, bargain, like your life depends on it, because in a way it does. The food keeps you alive, but the small comfort of choice keeps you sane. But the truth is, no matter what you eat, it sits heavy in your gut. It churns, it gurgles, it makes you feel like you swallowed lead. And you know what's coming later? A date with the jungle latrine, if you can even dig one before the next march. Breakfast doesn't energize you. It doesn't give you joy. It just happens to you. A necessary evil between waking up in the mud and strapping 70 pounds of misery onto your back. You finish the last bite, lick the spoon clean because leaving food is unthinkable, and pack away the empty can. The jungle doesn't allow litter, and your sergeant doesn't allow waste. The can goes back into your rucksack, clanking against ammunition, reminding you all day that you've eaten something you'd rather forget. You shoulder the weight, take a final drag from your cigarette, and stand. Breakfast is over. The day hasn't even started, and you're already exhausted. The worst part of the morning isn't the mud in your boots, or the flavour of ham and lima beans clinging to your tongue. The worst part is strapping everything back onto your body and pretending it's normal. You don't just get dressed. You assemble yourself like a piece of machinery. Every part locked in place. Every strap cinched down until the weight fuses to your bones. By the time you're done, you don't feel like a person anymore. You feel like a pack mule with a rifle. It starts with the rucksack, the same canvas beast you cursed yesterday and will curse again tomorrow. You drag it toward you, the straps stiff with dried sweat, the frame bent just enough to dig into your lower back in the worst way possible. You heave it upright, and already your shoulders ache from the memory of carrying it. It's stuffed with everything. Poncho, spare socks that aren't really dry, entrenching tool, mosquito net, claymore mines, extra ammunition, maybe a change of underwear if you're lucky. The army tells you it weighs around 60 pounds. Your spine swears it's closer to 100. You shrug it on, the straps biting into the grooves already carved into your shoulders. The weight slams down on your back, compressing your spine until you feel shorter. Your knees absorb the shock, wobbling under the load. You grunt without meaning to, because your body knows what's coming. Miles of marching, hours of sweat, endless jungle, all with this anchor chained to you. Next comes the web gear, a harness of straps and pouches that turns you into a walking supply cabinet. Magazine pouches across your chest, grenades clipped to your belt, canteens bouncing at your hips, bayonet dangling against your thigh. Each piece has a place, each item a specific function. The army loves order. The jungle loves chaos. Together they create the sound of clanking metal and shifting weight that follows you everywhere. You cinch the belt tight, the canvas rubbing raw spots into your waist, and feel the grenades bumping like impatient fists against your sides. Each one is a reminder that at some point today you might need to throw one, and the thought sits in your stomach heavier than the canned rations. Your bayonet digs into your hip every time you crouch. Your canteens slosh, half full of water that tastes like pennies. And your entrenching tool, strapped across your back, feels like a shovel-shaped tumour, reminding you that sooner or later you'll be digging another hole in the mud. Then you sling your rifle. It's an extension of your body now, a constant companion you can't set down. The black metal is slick with oil, hot to the touch under the sun, and heavier than you want to admit. You adjust the strap, shift it across your shoulder, and feel it knock against your gear as you move. It never sits right. It's always there, bumping, sliding, threatening to slip just when you need your hands free, but you hold on to it because letting go isn't an option. Out here, the rifle is your lifeline. The helmet goes on last, the steel pot clamping down on your head like a punishment. The strap chafes under your chin, the liner smells like old sweat, and the weight presses into your neck until your shoulders scream. You tilt it forward, then back, trying to find a comfortable angle. There isn't one. Every step will remind you it's there, bouncing just enough to send jolts down your spine. You'll get used to it, but you'll never stop hating it. When you finally stand, fully loaded, you feel the transformation complete. You're no longer just a man. You're a silhouette built of straps, canvas, steel, and misery. You're carrying your life on your back and your death strapped to your chest. The gear doesn't just weigh you down, it changes how you move. Your steps are shorter, your back hunched, your arms bent to balance the load. Every motion is deliberate, calculated to stop something from slipping, clanking, or digging into your flesh in a new way. And then you look around. Everyone else is doing the same. An entire squad of men bent under the same burden, helmets bobbing, rifles slung, grenades rattling. The jungle swallows you whole, but it swallows you as a unit of identical, miserable pack animals. You glance at your buddy, and his face is already slick with sweat. He shrugs his pack higher onto his shoulders, curses under his breath, and you know exactly how he feels without a word. There's no comfort in solidarity, but there's recognition. You're all equally trapped in this daily ritual. The sound of the gear becomes its own soundtrack. Canteens slosh with every step. Metal clips rattle like chains. Boots squelch in the mud. Cloth creaks as it stretches under the strain. The noises follow you, surround you, remind you that silence is impossible. Even if you wanted to sneak, your own equipment betrays you. The jungle is quiet one moment, and then your pack shifts, and the clank echoes like a bell. You curse the straps, but you can't remove a single thing. Every item is essential, or so you've been told. You think about home, about mornings where strapping on gear meant tying shoelaces or buttoning a shirt. Here it means building a tower of weight on your body and carrying it until your muscles scream. You wonder if the designers ever thought about the men who would actually wear it. Probably not. To them, it's just numbers on a chart. To you, it's another mile of sweat and pain. There's no ceremony to it. No speech, no motivation. You just strap it on, grunt, and get ready to move. The sergeant gives the signal, and the squad lines up. Your pack shifts as you straighten, pulling you backward, forcing you to adjust. You tighten the straps again, feel the pressure bite deeper, and take your place in line. This is strapping on the gear. It's the moment your day officially begins, the moment you stop being a man and start being a machine designed to move forward under crushing weight. There's no choice. There's no comfort. There's just the ritual of burden, repeated day after day, until you forget what it feels like to walk without it. You don't walk onto a plane in Vietnam the way you walk onto a plane back home. There's no boarding pass, no smiling stewardess, no polite announcement about cruising altitude and complimentary peanuts. There's just the roar of engines, the smell of jet fuel, and the weight of your gear dragging you toward the open mouth of a machine built for war. The C-130 doesn't look like freedom. It looks like a flying warehouse with wings bolted on. A steel box designed to haul bodies and cargo with the same indifference. The first thing that hits you is the sound. Those 4 turboprop engines scream like banshees. A constant mechanical howl that makes conversation impossible. The air vibrates with it. Your teeth rattle, your helmet strap buzzes against your chin, and even your chest feels like it's shaking from the inside out. You shout something to the man next to you, but he just shrugs. Words don't matter here. The engines drown out everything. The heat follows you onto the tarmac. Black asphalt radiates upward, mixing with the humidity until you feel like you're standing inside a furnace. Your boots stick slightly with each step, and sweat runs down your face in steady streams. The air smells like burning fuel, hot rubber, and stale sweat from 100 other men who marched this same path before you. You take a deep breath, and it feels like inhaling a gas station. Your pack digs deeper into your shoulders as you approach the plane. The straps creak, the weight shifts, and your knees ache with every step. You think about what's inside: ammunition, grenades, rations, water, poncho, all of it bouncing with each movement. It doesn't matter how carefully you packed. The moment you start walking, it feels like it was designed to slam into your spine at the worst angle possible. You grunt, shift it higher, and keep moving. The ramp of the C-130 is down, a steel tongue stretching to the ground. You climb it, boots clanging on the metal surface, and the sound echoes like a drum inside the cavernous space. The air inside is different. Not cooler, just heavier. Thick with the smell of oil, grease and canvas. The plane isn't welcoming. It's a hollow, vibrating cage. Red webbed seats line the sides, more like lawn chairs strung together than anything designed for comfort. In the middle, cargo is strapped down with thick belts, crates of supplies that look sturdier than the men carrying them. You shuffle to your seat, sling your rifle across your lap, and drop onto the red nylon webbing. It cuts into your back instantly, sagging just enough to remind you there's no cushion, no support, no relief. Your helmet bumps the wall behind you, and your knees collide with the knees of the man across from you. There's no leg room, no personal space, just rows of tired faces, all sweating, all staring at the floor, all pretending this is normal. The noise inside is deafening. The engines roar, the metal vibrates, the floor trembles. You can't hear your own thoughts, let alone the man yelling something 2 seats down. The only communication is through hand signals, nods, or blank stares. You strap yourself in, the belt rough and frayed, and feel the vibrations climb into your bones. The plane feels alive, like a beast shaking itself awake, and you're strapped inside its belly. The heat doesn't let up. Air circulates, but it's hot air, thick and stale, swirling sweat back onto your skin. Your uniform sticks to you. Your socks squish, and your helmet strap digs deeper with every bounce of the plane. You wipe your face with your sleeve, but it's useless. You're soaked through, and you'll stay that way. The ramp closes with a heavy clang, sealing you in. The outside world disappears, replaced by the dim glow of red light strung along the ceiling. The sound grows louder as the engines throttle up. The plane shudders, lurches forward, and you grip your rifle tighter. Your stomach sinks as the wheels lift off the ground, and for a moment you feel weightless. Then the vibration returns, harder, louder, relentless. Around you no one speaks. Some men close their eyes, trying to steal a few minutes of rest. Others stare straight ahead, jaws clenched, hands gripping straps or rifles. A few chew gum or smoke cigarettes, the glow of the tips faint against the red light. The silence isn't peace, it's tension. Every man knows where this flight leads. There's no vacation waiting, no family reunion, no soft landing. There's a drop zone, a jump, and whatever waits on the ground. You think about the jump. About the moment the green light will flash, the door will open, and you'll step out into nothing. You imagine the wind tearing at your face, the roar of the engines replaced by the rush of air, the sudden silence of falling. You picture the parachute opening, or not. You picture the ground rising faster than you want it to. You picture the jungle waiting to swallow you whole. You shift in your seat, but there's no comfort. The straps cut into your thighs, the helmet bumps again, the rifle digs into your lap. You take a deep breath, but the air tastes like oil and rubber. You swallow hard, force yourself to stay calm, and focus on the routine. Adjust your straps. Check your rifle. Check your chute. Check again. Rituals help. They give you something to do while the engines scream and the plane shudders like it's about to tear itself apart. Time moves differently inside a C-130. Minutes stretch into hours. Hours collapse into minutes. You lose track. You just sit, wait, and endure. The vibration becomes a constant hum in your bones. The noise becomes background, like static in your brain. You stop noticing the sweat, the smell, the straps. You become part of the machine, another piece of cargo waiting to be dropped. When the crew chief finally stands, when he walks to the door and signals, your stomach twists. The red light glows, steady and unforgiving. Men shuffle, stand, line up. Rifles slung, parachutes checked. Eyes wide but steady. The engines roar louder, the plane banks, the world tilts, and you grip the man in front of you. The light doesn't change yet, but you know it will. And when it does, you'll step into the void because that's the job. This is boarding the C-130. It's not a ride. It's not transportation. It's the steel-walled tunnel between one misery and another. The machine that carries you from mud to sky to jungle again. You don't think about comfort. You don't think about safety. You just strap in, sweat, shake, and wait for the moment when the door opens and the light turns green. The red light burns above the door, steady and unforgiving. The roar of the engines has become part of your skull, vibrating through your teeth, rattling your helmet strap, shaking in your chest like an extra heartbeat. You stand now, knees braced under the weight of your pack, parachute straps digging into your shoulders, rifle slung awkwardly across your chest. You're in a line of men who all look the same, sweating, silent, staring at the door like it's the mouth of something that eats people. The crew chief slams his hand against the frame, points, yells words you can't hear over the engines. You don't need to hear. You know what it means. Get ready. Check your gear again, because if anything is wrong now, the ground will remind you brutally. You tug your straps, slap your helmet, pat the reserve chute on your belly, and grip the man's shoulder in front of you. He grips the one in front of him. The chain of hands locks tight, a human cord bracing against the vibrating beast you're trapped inside. The red light flips to green, and that's it. That's the moment. There's no speech, no ceremony, no time to second guess. The door opens, and the plane vomits light, sound, and hot, rushing air into the hold. The roar of the engines is replaced by the scream of the wind, a violent rush that tears at your uniform, slaps your helmet, and fills your mouth with the taste of metal and oil. The smell of jet fuel mixes with the smell of your own sweat, and the world outside is suddenly a blur of green jungle far below and blue sky all around. The first man in line disappears. One moment he's there, the next he's gone, swallowed by the void. Then the next goes, then the next. The line moves forward, and you're being dragged with it. Your stomach drops, your knees lock, your hands grip tighter, but there's no stopping. The line pulls, the door widens, and suddenly you're at the edge. For a split second, the world is nothing but sky, noise, and the realization that you're about to jump out of a perfectly good airplane into a war zone. And then you go, the floor drops away, and the wind grabs you. It's not like falling in a dream, weightless and silent. It's violent. The air slams into your body, rattles your teeth, rips at your straps, yanks your helmet back until the chin strap nearly strangles you. You're tumbling in noise, in chaos, in pure sensory overload. The plane is gone, replaced by the sky, the ground, and the sound of rushing air so loud it feels like the world is tearing apart. You count. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Your training takes over. You pull the ripcord, and for a terrifying heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the chute snaps open with a crack so hard it feels like your spine just broke in half. The straps dig deep into your shoulders, your thighs, your chest. Your body jerks upright, suspended, dangling like a puppet. The noise changes instantly. The roar of wind fades, replaced by a sudden eerie quiet, broken only by the flapping of canvas and the distant hum of engines fading away. You look down, and there it is. Vietnam spread out beneath you. A patchwork of rice paddies, rivers, villages, and endless jungle stretching in every direction. From up here, it looks almost peaceful. Almost. But you know better. You know the ground is waiting, and it isn't welcoming. You see smoke curling from tree lines. You see flashes that might be sunlight or might be something else. You hear distant pops that don't sound like fireworks. And suddenly, The quiet isn't peaceful. It's a trap. Your descent isn't gentle. The chute swings, yanks, tilts you sideways. The air is hot, thick, humid, even at this height. Sweat stings your eyes, but you can't wipe it away. Your hands grip the straps, knuckles white as you try to steer, to angle, to avoid the worst landing spots. The jungle canopy looms like a net of knives. The rice paddies glisten like pools waiting to drown you. The open fields are suspiciously empty. There's no soft landing anywhere. There's just ground, and it's rushing up faster than you want it to. You brace, legs bent, teeth clenched, and then you hit. The impact is brutal. Your knees slam up into your chest, your back jars, and the weight of your gear tries to bury you alive. You roll, tumble, curse, your rifle banging against your ribs, your helmet cracking into the dirt. The straps dig deeper. The chute drags you sideways until you claw at the cords, fighting to collapse it before it pulls you into a tree or a ditch. Your lungs heave, your heart pounds, and for a moment you're just a heap of sweat, mud, and canvas on the ground. You scramble up, adrenaline screaming through your veins, and yank your rifle into your hands. The chute collapses behind you, fabric flapping uselessly in the breeze, and suddenly the quiet is gone. The ground is alive with noise. Shouts, gunfire, explosions in the distance. The jungle that looked still from the air is now vibrating with chaos. Men yelling, boots thudding, metal clanking. Radios squawk orders that barely cut through the noise. Somewhere close, a machine gun opens up, the staccato ripping through the air like a zipper on steel. You stumble forward, pack dragging you sideways, rifle clutched tight. The smell hits you next. Gunpowder, sweat, smoke, and something burning you can't quite identify. The ground shakes with distant impacts, and you realise you've gone from one kind of chaos to another. The drop is over. The fight has already begun. This is the drop into chaos. It's leaving one prison of noise for another. It's trading the roar of engines for the scream of bullets. It's the moment where training ends and survival begins, where the sky spits you out and the ground swallows you whole. There's no pause, no breath, just the endless grinding realization that you've landed in the middle of a war and the day hasn't even started. The ground doesn't care how much training you've had. It doesn't care how many times you've practiced parachute landings, how many times you've rehearsed rolling, or how carefully you counted before pulling the cord. The ground only knows one thing. You're falling out of the sky with 70 pounds of misery strapped to your body, and gravity is about to settle the score. The first second of contact feels like being hit by a truck you didn't see coming. Your legs buckle, your knees slam together, your helmet snaps forward, and the straps dig into your shoulders so deep you're convinced they've carved permanent trenches in your flesh. You tell yourself you're supposed to roll. Absorb the impact, spread it out, make it graceful. But nothing about it is graceful. It's violent, messy, and loud. You hit the dirt, tumble sideways, and suddenly the jungle floor is in your teeth. Your rifle slams against your ribs, the buttstock digging into bone. Your rucksack flips over your head like a malicious animal trying to smother you. The reserve chute on your belly drives itself into your stomach, knocking the air out of you so hard you make a sound you didn't know your body was capable of. You roll, scrape, crash, until finally you stop, sprawled in the mud, gasping, blinking at a canopy of leaves that seems to be laughing at you. If you're unlucky, you didn't land on dirt at all. Maybe you crashed into a rice paddy, the water soaking your gear instantly, turning your boots into anchors and your pack into a drowning weight. You thrash, yank at straps, claw for air while the chute drags you sideways across the muck. Or maybe you slammed into a tree, branches tearing at your uniform, helmet cracking against wood, gear snagging until you hang there like a rag doll caught in a spider web. The army manual might have a page for this, but the tree doesn't care. You dangle, curse, and pray someone cuts you down before the enemy sees you swinging like bait. And then there's the landing on hard ground. Rocks, roots, clay baked solid by the sun. No mud to cushion. No water to break your fall. Just bone meeting earth at full speed. Ankles twist, knees pop, shoulders wrench. Men limp for weeks after a bad drop. Some don't limp at all. They're carried out on stretchers, another name on another clipboard, another reminder that the jungle doesn't need bullets to break you. The chute doesn't make it easier. It drags you the moment you hit, pulling at your body like it wants to finish the job. The wind doesn't have to be strong. Even a light breeze turns the canopy into a sail, yanking you sideways through mud, rocks or water. You claw at the straps, roll onto your stomach, dig your heels into the ground and fight to collapse it. Your hands shake, your lungs burn, and the canopy just laughs, billowing and dragging until you finally wrestle it down. By then, you're covered in mud, your hands are raw, and your heart feels like it's trying to escape your chest. The moment you stop moving, you realise how loud everything else is. Shouts from other men, gear clanking, boots pounding the ground. Somewhere nearby, gunfire cracks like whips. The jungle floor vibrates with explosions in the distance. You're still gasping for breath, still trying to convince your legs to work, and already the war is waiting. There's no pause, no time to catch up. The ground doesn't give you a minute to recover. You're expected to get up, grab your rifle, and move before the enemy does. Your gear, of course, makes that harder. The rucksack is half buried in mud. Straps twisted around your torso. You yank, pull, curse, until it frees itself with a sucking sound. Your rifle is coated in dirt, the barrel clogged with clumps of earth. You pray don't jam it when you fire. Your helmet is askew, chin strap choking you until you shove it back into place. Everything you own has shifted, slid, tangled, and you're forced to put it all back together while adrenaline makes your hands clumsy. You stand finally, legs trembling, knees aching, and glance around. Men are scattered across the field, some crawling out of rice paddies, some swearing as they cut themselves free from trees, some limping, some already digging in. The scene isn't orderly, it's chaos. Gear everywhere, shouts overlapping, sergeants barking, and above it all, the jungle itself, silent and watchful, like it's waiting to see how many of you make it past this morning. The pain settles in fast. Ankles throbbing, shoulders bruised, ribs aching from the rifle butt. You don't even check for scrapes or cuts. You know they're there. You feel the sting of sweat mixing with blood, the itch of dirt ground into wounds, the burn of muscles pulled too far. You just move. Because stopping isn't allowed. Not here. Not now. You gather your chute, stuff the fabric into a bundle that feels like carrying a wet carpet, and sling it awkwardly across your back. The army doesn't like leaving evidence for the enemy. You curse the extra weight, but you carry it anyway, because orders are orders. Your rucksack shifts again, your straps creak, and your shoulders scream as you add one more burden to the pile. You fall into formation, rifle raised, and march forward. Every step hurts, every breath burns. The ground didn't welcome you. It punished you. But there's no sympathy waiting, no break coming, no moment to sit and recover. You've hit the ground hard, and now you're expected to keep going, because in Vietnam, the landing is just the beginning. The jungle is never quiet. That's the first thing you learn after hitting the ground. Even when the guns aren't firing, even when no one's talking, there's always noise. The insects never stop screaming, the birds never shut up, the branches groan under the weight of things you'll never see, and somewhere in the distance there's always water dripping, trickling, or rushing, like the entire country is leaking. But the natural sounds, as overwhelming as they are, don't define the world you've dropped into. What defines it is the new soundtrack layered over everything, the human one, the war one. It starts with gunfire. You'll never forget the first crack. It isn't like in the movies, where rifles pop politely or machine guns stutter neatly in the background. It's sharper, more violent, more final. When an M16 goes off next to your ear, the sound tears through you like someone slammed a car door on your head. It echoes off trees, bounces off water, and punches into your chest in a way that makes you forget to breathe for a second. It's deafening up close, and distant gunfire is worse in some ways, because you can't tell where it's coming from. A burst rattles off somewhere in the tree line, and suddenly your body's screaming at you to dive, duck, hide, even if it wasn't meant for you. Then there's the enemy's gunfire, and that's a whole other kind of nightmare. The AK-47 has a different voice than the M16. Deeper, slower, like a jackhammer compared to a nail gun. When you hear it, you know immediately it's not friendly. Your heart spikes, your grip tightens, and every muscle in your body tells you to freeze. The sound is distinct enough that even in your sleep, if one crackles off in the distance, you'll wake up with your finger twitching for the trigger. It becomes part of your nervous system, a Pavlovian reflex for terror. Layered over the rifles is the chatter of the M60, the squad's machine gun. That sound is unmistakable. A deep, ripping growl, like someone tearing cloth the size of a football field. Every burst seems endless, even though it's only seconds. You feel it as much as you hear it. A vibration in your ribs, in your teeth, in the ground beneath you. When the gunner cuts loose, it's like having a dragon on your side, spitting lead instead of fire. And for a moment, you almost believe in invincibility. Then you see the empty shell casings spilling across the dirt, smelled a sharp tang of hot brass mixing with gunpowder, and remember it's just a man behind the trigger, sweating like the rest of you, praying the belt doesn't jam. Mortars and artillery add another layer, a percussion section you don't want tickets for. The thump of a mortar tube kicking out a round is strange, almost soft, like someone slapping a bass drum. But the whistling arc it makes overhead, the way it builds in pitch and speed until it ends in a shattering explosion, that's the part that carves itself into your memory. Artillery is worse. You don't hear the shell fired, you just hear it arriving. A whistling scream that ends in a roar so violent it feels like the air itself has been ripped open. Trees crack, dirt showers down, and your ears ring with a high-pitched whine that lingers long after the blast is over. Sometimes the ringing never leaves. Men joke about their ears being shot, but the truth is, by the end of a tour, most of you can't hear half the things you used to. The jungle is loud, but the war is deafening. And then there are the helicopters, the Hueys. Their sound is so constant, it becomes a kind of heartbeat for the war. You hear them before you see them. That heavy, chopping whomp 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 that rattles the air like a giant fan blade slicing the sky. Sometimes they're bringing supplies. Sometimes they're pulling men out. Sometimes they're spraying gunfire into the trees. But the sound is always the same. Distinct, relentless, comforting when they're on your side, terrifying when you realise they're not coming for you this time. The rotor wash slams the grass flat, throws dust in your eyes, and fills your mouth with grit. The sound of a Huey overhead means everything's happening at once. Men shouting, dirt flying, orders being screamed over the radio. And when the choppers fade into the distance, the silence they leave behind feels heavier than their noise. Explosions fill in the gaps. Hand grenades don't sound like fireworks. They're blunt, quick, and cruel, like the world hiccuped and spat shrapnel in every direction. Claymores, the ones you set yourself, are worse. They don't just explode, they detonate with a snap so sharp it makes your spine jump. You know what those tiny metal balls are doing on the other end, and the sound reminds you that this is survival, not spectacle. Radios layer their own chaos into the mix, squawking, hissing, voices breaking up mid-sentence, commands coming in clipped and rushed, numbers, call signs, fragments of words that may or may not make sense to the guy holding the handset. The static is constant, a background fuzz that merges with the insects until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Every now and then, a voice comes through clear, and everyone freezes, listening, waiting to hear if the order is good news, or the kind that means someone's not making it home. On top of all that, there's the human soundtrack. Men yelling, short bursts, urgent, panicked. Orders barked, curses shouted, prayers muttered under breath. Sometimes it's laughter, sharp and too loud, the kind that borders on hysteria. Sometimes it's screams, the kind that cut through everything else and sink into your stomach like lead. The jungle absorbs some of it, muffles it, but the sounds still carry. They stick to you. You remember them at night, replay them in your head, hear them even when it's quiet. The war has a smell too, and it laces itself into the soundtrack until you can't separate the two. Gunpowder hangs in the air, acrid and metallic, mixing with the thick, sweet rot of the jungle. Smoke drifts from burning trees, leaves, sometimes buildings, sometimes worse. Sweat adds its own stench, sharp and sour, carried on every man around you. The war smells like it sounds, heavy, layered, choking. Every breath you take is full of it. And when it pauses, when the shooting stops and the helicopters fade, the silence isn't real silence. Your ears ring, your chest still hums, your brain still expects the next crack, the next blast, the next voice screaming orders. The insects return, louder than before, as if mocking the human noise that just passed. You lie there in the mud, rifle clutched tight, and realise you're still listening, still waiting, because the soundtrack never ends. Even when it's quiet, the echoes keep playing. This is the music of your day. Rifles cracking, machine guns roaring, mortars thumping, artillery tearing the sky apart, helicopters chopping overhead, radios squawking, men shouting, men screaming, men laughing at the wrong things because it's the only way to keep from losing it. It's a symphony you never wanted tickets to, and one you can't walk out of. It doesn't fade when you cover your ears. It doesn't end when the shooting stops. It keeps playing inside your head, on repeat, long after the jungle has swallowed the echoes, and it blends seamlessly into the other constant, the jungle itself, alive and indifferent. screaming with life, while you crawl through it under fire. The soundtrack of war isn't just bullets and bombs. It's the mix of human chaos and natural noise, woven together into something that never stops, never fades, never lets you forget where you are. It follows you whether you're running, marching, eating, or trying to sleep. It follows you into dreams, and it follows you into the next morning when you wake up and realise it's all starting again. The jungle looks green in the pictures. A lush paradise, thick trees, endless canopies, the kind of place travel magazines call exotic. But the second you're standing in it, with 70 pounds on your back and sweat in your eyes, you realise this isn't scenery. It's an enemy. One that doesn't carry rifles or wear uniforms, but still fights you every second of every day. The first assault comes from the ground. You can't trust it. Sometimes it's solid, sometimes it's mud pretending to be solid, and sometimes it's nothing but a swamp disguised with a thin crust of leaves. You step, sink to your knees, and suddenly your boots weigh double, sucking into the muck like they're welded there. You yank one foot out, nearly lose the boot, slam it back down somewhere else, and repeat until you hate every square inch of earth under you. The mud swallows socks, eats equipment, pulls at straps until you feel like you're dragging the jungle itself behind you. When it isn't mud, it's roots. Thick, twisted, gnarled ropes rising out of the ground like they're alive. They trip you, catch your boots, snap ankles, and mock your every step. You stumble, curse, smack your shin, and keep going, because stopping means the man behind you walks right over you. If you fall, you don't get a moment to breathe. You scramble up, knees bleeding, pack sliding sideways, rifle slamming against your chest, because the jungle doesn't wait. And if it isn't mud or roots, it's rocks, sharp, hidden, waiting under leaves. You don't see them until your boot heel drives straight onto a jagged edge, sending pain up your legs so sharp you nearly bite your tongue off. You limp for the next mile, pretending you're fine, while the ground laughs at you with every uneven step. The ground isn't the only thing. The jungle grows walls around you. Vines hang like ropes from above, tangling your helmet, wrapping around your rifle, catching your pack until you're jerked backward like someone yanked a leash. You hack with your machete, slash, curse, and move forward 2 feet before another vine grabs you. Branches snap back into your face, smacking your cheeks, cutting your skin. Leaves brush against your neck, sticky with sap that itches for hours. Even bamboo isn't innocent. Walk too close, and the sharp edges slice your uniform open, leaving paper-cut streaks down your arms. And then there are the thorns. Hidden in the underbrush, sharp as nails, stabbing through your fatigues like they were made of tissue paper. They tear your sleeves, shred your trousers, and rake your skin until your arms and legs look like someone dragged you through barbed wire. Which, of course, sometimes you are dragged through, because the jungle swallows old obstacles, leaving them waiting under moss. You pull free, bleeding, sweating, itching, and you keep moving because everyone else is doing the same. The canopy above doesn't give you light. It doesn't give you warmth. It just traps the heat you already hate. The sun filters through in patches, shafts of blinding brightness that make you squint before you're back in darkness so heavy you can barely see 2 feet ahead. Your eyes never adjust. You're always straining, always scanning, always imagining shapes in the gloom. The enemy could be 10 yards away or 100, and you'd never know until the first bullet cracks. And then there's the water. It's everywhere, and it's never clean. Rivers slice through the jungle, but they're brown, clogged with mud, plants, and sometimes worse. You step into one, and leeches attach themselves before you realise it. Pull them off, and your blood keeps flowing, leaving streaks down your boots. Streams trickle constantly, breeding mosquitoes by the millions. Stagnant pools hide bacteria, parasites, worms. You drink from them once without iodine tablets, and you'll spend the next week doubled over in agony, emptying yourself until you're too weak to move. Rain falls whenever it wants. Not polite showers, downpours. Walls of water that hammer your helmet, soak your uniform, flood your boots, and turn the trail into a river of sludge. You can't see 10 feet ahead, can't hear the man next to you, can't keep anything dry. Maps turn to pulp. Cigarettes dissolve in your pocket. Rations rot before you can eat them. And then, when the rain finally stops, the humidity doubles, turning the world into a sauna that cooks you alive. Nothing dries. Not your socks, not your pack, not your soul. The jungle is alive, and it reminds you every second. Ants swarm your food if you drop a crumb. Fire ants crawl into your boots at night, and in the morning you jam your foot in without knowing until the stings set in like hot needles. Mosquitoes never leave. They bite through sleeves, through trousers, through netting. You slap your arm, kill one and two more land before you can blink. The buzzing is constant, in your ears, in your hair, a sound you can't escape. They carry malaria, dengue fever, things you can't pronounce. You take your pills, bitter chalky tablets that leave your stomach sour, and still you wonder if the next bite is the one that gets you. Other insects are worse. Leeches cling silently, fattening themselves on your blood until you notice the wet streaks running down your calves. You peel one off, toss it, and feel another already feeding. Spiders drop onto your helmet, big enough that you hear the legs click on steel. Centipedes crawl into your pack, curl under your socks, bite with venom that leaves you sweating and shaking for hours. Scorpions find their way into boots, their stings throbbing long after you've smashed them flat. The jungle never stops sending new enemies, each one small enough to mock you, but dangerous enough to ruin your week. Snakes slide through the grass, invisible until your boot almost lands on them. Some are harmless, some are not. You can't tell in time, so you freeze, heart hammering, sweat dripping, until it disappears into the leaves. One mistake, one wrong step, and you're a footnote in someone's report, dead from venom while carrying more weapons than you can list. Crocodiles wait in rivers. Rats infest your camp, chewing through rations, running across your face at night. Even the plants fight back. Nettles sting, saps burn, pollen clogs your nose until you can't breathe. At night, the jungle changes, but it doesn't get easier. The darkness is total. You can't see your own hands, can't see the man lying a foot away. Every sound is louder, every rustle a threat. Frogs croak deep, guttural songs that sound like laughter. Owls shriek from the trees, sudden, sharp, cutting through the blackness until your heart jumps. You lie there, rifle across your chest, sweat still dripping, eyes wide open, because closing them feels like giving in. The jungle doesn't let you rest. The ground is too hard, too wet, too alive. You curl on your poncho, but the ants find you anyway. You pull your net down, but mosquitoes buzz through holes. You close your eyes, and rats crawl over your pack. You try to sleep, and the jungle reminds you it's always watching. The worst part is knowing it doesn't care. It isn't trying to kill you out of malice. It isn't personal. It's just being what it is. A living, breathing machine that consumes everything inside it. The vines, the mud, the heat, the insects, the snakes. They don't notice you. They don't care if you're American, Vietnamese, anyone. You're just another body moving through a system designed to break you down. And it works. Day after day, step after step, cut after cut, bite after bite. The jungle wins by never stopping. And you realise, somewhere between swatting mosquitoes and hacking through vines, that the enemy with rifles isn't the only one out there. The jungle itself is fighting you just as hard, and it doesn't run out of ammunition. You could almost get used to the mud, the heat, the rain, the weight of the gear, even the constant roar of helicopters overhead. But what you never, ever get used to are the creatures that share the jungle with you. Bugs, leeches, and all the other freeloading roommates that don't pay rent but make sure you never forget they're there. The jungle isn't just alive in a poetic sense. It's alive in the worst, most literal way possible. Crawling on your skin, sucking your blood, buzzing in your ears, and reminding you every second that you're just another piece of meat in the food chain. The first and most obvious tormentors are the mosquitoes. Back home, mosquitoes are annoying. They buzz in your ear when you're trying to sleep. They leave itchy bumps on your arm during a barbecue. Here, they're something else entirely. They're relentless, tireless, and infinite. You slap one off your arm, and 3 more land in the exact same spot before you finish the motion. They come in clouds, black swarms that hover over puddles, rivers, or anything warm-blooded. You douse yourself in repellent, the thick, oily kind that smells like it should dissolve rubber tyres, and they don't care. They land anyway, bite through the fabric of your uniform, drill straight into your skin, as if the chemicals are just seasoning. You stop counting bites after the first week. Your arms and legs are a mess of welts. Some red, some swollen, some bleeding because you scratched them raw in your sleep. Your face is dotted with angry bumps. Your neck ringed with bites. Your hand swollen enough that your rifle grip feels wrong. At night, the high-pitched whine of their wings is constant, like a dentist's drill circling your head, drilling into your nerves. You cover yourself with a net, but the net has holes, and the mosquitoes find them with surgical precision. You wake up scratching, swatting, cursing, and by morning you look like you've rolled in poison ivy. And these aren't just itchy nuisances. They carry malaria, dengue fever, Japanese encephalitis, diseases you can't even pronounce till you've watched a buddy sweat through his uniform, shaking, delirious, begging for water he can't keep down. You choke down your malaria pills every morning, bitter chalk that sticks to your tongue and makes your stomach sour. The army swears it keeps you safe, but you've seen enough men drop sick to know it doesn't keep you safe enough. The mosquitoes always win. If the mosquitoes are the air force of the bug world, then the ants are the infantry. Fire ants, specifically. They're not just red, they're organised. You don't see them until it's too late. You sit down for a break, lean against a tree, and suddenly your entire leg is on fire. Hundreds of tiny jaws clamped into your skin at once, stinging with venom that burns worse than any cigarette. You jump up, swat, brush, dance like an idiot while your buddies laugh, until they're attacked too, and the laughter stops. They get into your food, into your boots, into your pack. Leave a crumb behind, and by morning your gear is swarming. And the ants aren't the only ones marching. Big black soldier ants crawl across the jungle floor, in columns so thick it looks like the ground itself is moving. You step into one by accident, and they climb your leg faster than you can react. Their bites don't burn like fire ants, but they're sharp, tearing little chunks out of your skin until you're bleeding from 20 tiny spots at once. You peel them off, fling them away, and keep walking, knowing they're already regrouping for the next ambush. Then there are the termites. At night, they swarm to light. If you risk striking a match or flicking on a flashlight, the air fills instantly with wings, thousands of them battering against your face, crawling into your ears, your hair, your shirt. You slap at them, spit them out, and kill your light, because the jungle is theirs, not yours. In the morning, your poncho is littered with wings, fragile husks that crunch under your boots as you pack up. But the worst ground enemy doesn't march or swarm. It waits. Leeches. They're the jungle's most patient killers, and they don't even bother hiding well. Step into grass, and they stretch up like little fingers, waving in the air, sniffing out your body heat. Wade into water, and they slip silently onto your legs, your arms, your stomach, anywhere they can find bare skin or an opening in your clothing. You don't feel them bite. That's their trick. They numb the spot, attach and suck until they're bloated, fat, wriggling sausages. You only notice when you feel something squish inside your boot, or when you pull off your sock and see a black wormy thing fall out, slick with your blood. You learn to check constantly. Peel off socks, scrape leeches from your ankles, burn them with cigarettes if they won't let go. Even then, they leave wounds that don't stop bleeding. Little red rivers running into your boots. You stuff a rag in there, curse, and keep moving. And you never win. Because the jungle is infinite, and the leeches never stop. Spiders add another dimension of misery. Some are small, crawling into your gear, leaving webs that stick to your face. Some are huge, the size of your hand, clinging to branches until you walk straight into them. You feel the web stretch across your face, sticky and suffocating, and you claw at your helmet, slapping blindly, convinced the spider is crawling into your hair. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but the panic is the same every single time. And some of them bite, leaving angry, festering wounds that swell for days. Then there are the centipedes. Long, red, segmented horrors with legs that skitter like claws. They crawl into your boots, your packs, your bedroll. One bite and your entire arm or leg swells up, throbbing like you've been smashed with a hammer. The pain lingers for hours, sometimes days, a reminder that the jungle doesn't need guns to torture you. Scorpions hide under rocks, in boots, in the folds of your pack. Their stings are sharp, stabbing, leaving you shaking, sweating and cursing until the venom fades. They're small, fast and impossible to avoid. You check your boots every morning, bang them against trees, dump them out. And still, one day, you jam your foot in too fast and feel the instant electric jolt shoot up your leg. You limp all day and the jungle doesn't care. Rats aren't insects, but they might as well be, because they're just as invasive. They infest every camp, chewing through rations, gnawing on packs, leaving droppings everywhere. At night, you feel them crawl over your chest, hear them squeak, sometimes wake up to find one staring at you from your helmet. They fight each other in the dark, squealing, gnashing teeth, and sometimes they bite you too. You learn to sleep half awake, one hand on your rifle, the other swatting at fur that may or may not be there. Even the flies get in on it. Big black flies that land on your food the second you open a can, leaving maggots behind before you can blink. Tiny gnats that swarm your face, flying straight into your eyes, your nose, your mouth. You wave your hand, curse, spit, and they come right back. Some crawl into your ears, buzzing so deep you can't get them out. You dig with a finger, with a stick, anything to stop the sound, but it's useless. The buzzing stays with you all day. Every day, every night, the jungle gives you new roommates. Creatures you never invited, never expected, and never stop hating. They don't give you breaks. They don't care about your mission, your orders, your survival. They're just there, biting, crawling, chewing, sucking, buzzing. You fight them constantly, and you lose constantly. And the worst part is knowing that no matter how many you kill, the jungle has more waiting. Infinite waves of misery, marching, flying, slithering, always hungry, always patient. You lie down at night, and they're with you. Mosquitoes whining against your net, rats scratching through your pack, leeches fattening themselves on your ankles, ants exploring your arms. You try to close your eyes, and something skitters across your chest. You swat, roll over, curse, and try again. Sleep never comes easy, not because of the war outside, but because of the jungle's army crawling all over you. And in the end, you realise they've won. The bugs, the leeches, the rats. They've broken you in ways bullets never could. They've turned you into a man who checks his boots before putting them on, who slaps his own face at phantom noises, who twitches at every tickle on his skin. The jungle doesn't just fight you with heat and mud. It fights you with every living thing it can throw at you. And it never stops. Marching is supposed to be simple. Put one foot in front of the other, repeat until you get where you're going. In the jungle of Vietnam, it becomes something else entirely. It isn't exercise, it isn't transportation, and it definitely isn't just walking. Marching here is punishment. A slow grind that takes every ounce of energy out of you, and still asks for more. You don't march with purpose. You march because you're told to. Because the jungle doesn't allow shortcuts. Because helicopters only go so far, and boots have to do the rest. The day starts heavy before you've even moved. Your rucksack is already dragging your shoulders down, straps biting deep into grooves that never heal. Your rifle digs into your chest, your canteen slap your hips, and your boots squish with every step, still soaked from last night's rain. You're sore before you even take the first stride. And then the order comes. Move out. And the column starts to snake its way into the trees, single file, a line of bent, sweating bodies trudging forward without a word. The first hour feels manageable. You adjust the straps, shift the weight, roll your shoulders. You're sweating, but everyone's sweating. The mud pulls at your boots, the roots trip your feet, but you tell yourself you'll get into rhythm. That's the lie you cling to. Because rhythm doesn't exist here. Every step is different. One foot sinks to your ankle in muck. The next lands on a slick rock that nearly sends you down. The next tangles in a vine that jerks you backward. The jungle doesn't allow consistency. It keeps you off balance, forces your legs and back to work harder than they should, and you realise quickly there's no such thing as getting used to it. Your pace is slow, painfully slow, and still it feels impossible to keep. The man in front of you stumbles, the man behind you pushes, and you're caught in the chain reaction of exhaustion. You stare at his boots, caked in mud, lifting, falling, lifting, falling, and you match them because that's all you can do. You can't see ahead, can't see behind, can't see anything except boots and mud and sweat. Your world shrinks to the back of one man's legs and the sound of your own breath rattling in your helmet. The heat makes every step worse. Sweat runs into your eyes until they blur, drips off your nose, soaks your uniform until it clings like a second skin made of glue. Your socks are wet, your boots are heavy, and your legs feel like they're wading through cement. You stop caring about the insects biting your neck, the scratches tearing your arms, the leeches fattening themselves on your ankles. You're too tired to care. All you care about is keeping your feet moving, because the second you stop, you'll collapse. And collapsing isn't allowed. You don't set the pace. The man in front does, and he's miserable too. Sometimes he moves too fast, and the whole line struggles to keep up, pack swaying, lungs heaving. Sometimes he slows, and the line compresses, everyone bumping into each other, swearing under their breath, too tired to hide the irritation. And sometimes he just stops dead, and the line ripples like a whip, men stumbling, cursing, yanking their straps higher, trying to find balance again. There's no rhythm, no flow, just the endless grinding movement forward, forward, forward. And then there are the hills. Vietnam is full of them. Not the rolling kind, but steep, muddy, ankle-breaking slopes that laugh at your exhaustion. You climb with hands as much as feet, grabbing roots, clawing at rocks, dragging yourself upward while your pack pulls you backward. Your thighs burn, your calves scream, your lungs ache. Every step forward feels like sliding half a step back, boots losing grip, mud sucking you down. By the time you reach the top, you're soaked in sweat, gasping, trembling. And then you see the other side, the downhill slope that's just as treacherous. You go down half sliding, half falling, using your rifle as a walking stick, praying you don't twist an ankle or tumble into the man ahead of you. And the cycle repeats, hill after hill, climb and fall, until your legs don't feel like yours anymore. Rest breaks are a cruel joke. You're ordered to stop, drop your pack, and sit. The relief is immediate. Weight off your shoulders, boots off the ground, lungs gulping air. But the moment you sit, the pain sets in. Your back throbs, your knees stiffen, your feet pulse with blisters you didn't even feel while walking. You know the break won't last. 5 minutes, maybe 10, and then the order comes. Saddle up. And the thought of standing, lifting that pack again, putting your boots back into the mud, feels like torture. You do it anyway, because there's no choice. The blisters are their own private war. Every step rubs skin against damp fabric until the skin peels away, leaving raw patches that sting with sweat and dirt. You stuff socks into the wounds, tape them, curse them, and still they get worse. Some men slice their boots open just to relieve the pressure. Others pop blisters with knives, grimacing as the pus drains and the jungle filth seeps in. Infection is inevitable. Feet swell, toes blacken, skin cracks. You march on them anyway, because stopping isn't an option. Food becomes an afterthought. You choke down a can of sea rations during a break, not because you want to, but because your body is demanding fuel. You chew mechanically, swallow without tasting, and chase it with warm iodine water that makes you gag. Your stomach churns, rebels, but you keep walking because walking is the only constant. The pack feels heavier after every bite, your shoulders scream louder, and you wonder how many miles are left, though you know no one will tell you. The answer is always a few more. The The silence of marching isn't real silence. You hear the breathing of the men around you, the grunt of effort as someone stumbles, the curse muttered under breath, the constant swish of packs shifting, straps creaking, boots sucking out of mud. The jungle adds its own noise. Birds shrieking, monkeys howling, insects buzzing like power lines. Sometimes the sounds are so loud you can't hear yourself think. Other times they fade, replaced by the pounding of your own heartbeat in your ears. And always in the back of your mind there's the threat. The knowledge that at any moment this miserable march could end in gunfire. The enemy doesn't announce himself. He waits. He watches. He lets you sweat, stumble, suffer, and then he chooses the moment you're least ready. The march could stop with the crack of an AK-47, the explosion of a mine, the snap of a tripwire you didn't see. Every step is one step closer to that possibility. And still you keep moving, because standing still feels worse. The jungle itself conspires against you. Trails vanish into undergrowth, forcing you to hack your way forward with machetes. Bamboo thickets slice your arms, vines tangle your legs, branches whip your face. Mud sucks at your boots until you feel like you're walking on stilts made of sludge. Streams force you to wade waist deep, water seeping into every seam of your gear, adding pounds you can't afford. You stumble out dripping, heavier, and the march keeps going. Night marches are worse. You can't see the man in front of you, only hear his boots squelching in the mud. You stumble in total darkness, tripping over roots, crashing into branches, jerking awake when you almost fall asleep on your feet. Fireflies blink, confusing your tired brain into thinking they're signal lights. Every sound is magnified, every rustle a threat, every shadow a nightmare. You march half asleep, eyes glazed, rifle heavy in your hands, and wonder if your body will move on autopilot, even if your brain shuts down. Time loses meaning. Minutes stretch, hours vanish, and the march becomes endless. You don't ask how far you've gone, or how far is left. You don't care. You focus on the next step, and the one after that. Your world shrinks to the motion of boots lifting and falling, until it feels like you've been doing it forever. You forget what it's like to sit comfortably, to walk without weight, to stand without pain. Marching is your existence now, the endless loop of misery that defines your days. And the worst part? You know tomorrow will be the same. The gear will be just as heavy, the mud just as deep, the jungle just as cruel. Your feet will hurt worse, your back will ache more, your lungs will wheeze louder. And still, the order will come. Move out. And you will, because that's what you do. That's what marching in Vietnam is. Not a journey, not a mission, not a path to glory. Just endless movement through endless misery, without mercy, without relief, without end. You stop thinking of food as meals. You stop thinking of it as comfort. Out here, food is fuel, and sometimes it's punishment dressed up as calories. The morning's bitterness is still stuck to your tongue, that metallic aftertaste that never quite leaves, and already you're digging through your pack for the next round of edible negotiations. There's no menu. There's whatever the supply chain coughed up, whatever the resupply bird dropped without losing a rotor to small arms, whatever you didn't trade away in a moment of desperation yesterday when you would have given your boots for something that didn't taste like a wet cardboard apology. The box is ugly in a way that feels intentional. Olive drab, stamped with letters that might as well read, "Good luck." You know the contents by heart and dread them like weather. You slide out the cans, cold and slick with condensation, edges slightly tacky with jungle grime that finds a way into everything. The weight is comforting for half a second. Heavy means real food. Real food means energy. But the comfort evaporates when you remember what's inside. Meat product in gravy-shaped glue. Vegetables that have seen better centuries. Crackers engineered to deflect bullets and joy. Your hand finds the P-38, that little tin tooth hanging from your dog tags. The only piece of army design that makes sense day after day. It's a miracle the size of a postage stamp, and you treat it better than most of your gear. You hook it under the rim and start the ritual, puncture twist, sharp turns that leave a jagged ring and a crescent of greasy liquid on your thumb. The smell jumps out first, an industrial soup of fat, iron, and something sweet that shouldn't be there. Then the contents slump into view like a dare. If you drew ham and lima beans, you'll try not to make a face and fail. If it's spaghetti and meatballs, you'll pretend you're fine with meatballs that bounce. If it's pork slice with juice, you'll wonder which chemist signed off on the word juice. You learn tricks because not learning them means surrender. You crush crackers into the can to thicken the slime. You drop a pinch of instant coffee right into the gravy to cut the sweetness. You smear peanut butter on everything like spackle and tell yourself it's a cuisine. You break out the creamer pack and dump it into the cocoa and the sugar and stir until it becomes something thick enough to call pudding. Then pass it around like communion. That brown, holy paste disappearing on spoons carved from can lids and stubborn will. You save the cheese spread for emergencies, even though emergencies come daily. You swear it was born in a lab and will outlive the war, the jungle and the sun. It tastes like salted paint, and you still hoard it because it sticks to ribs and memories. You heat when you can, because warm lies better. The blue tongue of a C4 scrap turns a can into a pot, and the flame burns so clean it looks fake. A tiny campfire that smells wrong and draws jokes you've all told before. We're cooking with explosives. We're either eating or detonating. We'll know in 5 minutes. The can hisses, bubbles around the edges, and you learn the exact moment it's hot enough to fool your brain, but not so hot the metal blisters your fingers. You balance the can on a rock, suck air through your teeth, and shovel it in. For 10 seconds, it almost tastes like something from a kitchen, and then the jungle taste returns. Iodine, rubber, damp canvas, powder, and you're back inside the reality where flavour is a rumour. Sometimes there's fruit. A can of peaches is a lottery win, a bright, syrupy miracle that cuts straight through the damp grey of your mouth and goes off like fireworks in your skull. Pineapple rings make grown men close their eyes. Fruit cocktail carries those sad rubber cherries, and you'll still drink the syrup like it's a message from another planet. Pound cake shows up, and the world improves for 5 bites. Chocolate bars show up, already sweated into a puddle that tastes like a factory floor and nostalgia. You eat them anyway because sugar makes legs move and minds forget, at least for a mile. The accessory packet is its own economy. Matches that strike if they feel like it. Gum that tastes like mint for 6 chews and then turns into flavoured chalk. A tiny roll of toilet paper that could wrap a dollhouse, hoarded like it's a family heirloom because you'll need it when the jungle comes for your gut again. Salt, pepper, sometimes a slender glass bottle with fire inside. Hot sauce gifted by a supply sergeant with mercy, or a buddy with a mother who understood care packages. You passed that bottle around as if it were a relic, 3 drops at a time, each drop a decision. You could swear those drops make everything edible, and you ration them like life itself. Trading becomes culture. One man's hatred of lima beans becomes another man's treasure when he's sick of spaghetti. Crackers can buy coffee, coffee can buy cigarettes, cigarettes can buy loyalty for exactly 15 minutes. A can of peaches can buy you a friend for the afternoon, a partner on point, a guy who will carry your radio when your shoulders give out. Food makes promises the jungle tries to break, but for a little while the barter holds. You learn to tuck away the good stuff, hidden in socks or stitched into torn pockets, because rats have a nose for treasure, and so do men who haven't eaten sweetness in a week. You eat standing, squatting, kneeling, walking. You eat behind a tree while the line keeps moving. Half the can bouncing in your hand. Coffee powder clumping in warm canteen water, only pretending to dissolve. You eat under rain that turns the can into soup, whether you wanted it or not. You eat in silence when the radio's alive, and the sergeant's hand is up and the jungle has gone tight and small. Every bite loud in your own head. Every swallow a clock. You learn to keep the spoon in your mouth when you need both hands for your rifle, because losing the spoon is worse than losing 10 minutes of sleep. Spoons don't fall from the sky. There are rules you didn't know you needed. Never throw the lid where you sleep. Sharp edges are magnets for bare hands in the dark. Never leave a can half-eaten. Flies spawn miracles in minutes, and ants will own your gear by morning. Never leave cans anywhere near your night hole, unless you want rats sewing dance lessons on your chest at 3 a.m. Rinse what you can, crush what you can, pack out what you must, and try not to think about the weight of your own garbage following you like the smell of old decisions. The jungle remembers everything and returns it to you with interest. Care packages are myths until they aren't. A box with handwriting on it is church. You carve it open with hands that shake a little, not from fear, just from a memory you didn't want to notice. Inside there's a newspaper your buddy reads upside down just to pretend. A bag of cookies, fossilized into one blessed lump you break apart with a bayonet. A jar that didn't survive, and makes the whole box smell like home. And sometimes something that makes a man sit down hard. Photos, a letter, a child's drawing of a man with a big smile who looks like no one you know anymore. You share because you should, because your mother told you to, because the squad is the only family that exists until the war turns off, and even then it doesn't. For 10 minutes those cookies taste like a kitchen, and your chest opens and fills, and then you're back to cans and the P38 and a hot sauce bottle with 3 drops left. Water is the uninvited ingredient in everything you put in your mouth. The tablets turn it into swimming pool tea, and you drink it anyway, because the other option is turning yourself inside out behind a bush for 2 days while the column moves on without you. You learn the sound of iodine in your canteen, the tiny rattle, the chemical breath, and you accept it like bad news. Some men cheat, scoop from a stream, and hope they're lucky. Some men aren't. You carry that fear into every sip, a calculation you do without numbers. Thirst versus gamble versus the weight of one more canteen hanging off your hips, like a decision you'll pay for all day. Your stomach makes its own commentary. It complains, argues, revolts, then gives up and turns everything you swallow into the same tired slurry of salt and fat and memory. Some mornings you can't bring yourself to open a can, the smell punching you in the face before the lid is halfway off, so you chew a cracker, swallow a mouthful of peanut butter that glues your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and call it breakfast. Some nights your hands shake from low fuel and rage, and you tear through 3 cans in 10 minutes and lick the lids like a stray. Appetite is weather. You live under it. You remember other food with a precision that feels like cruelty. Eggs with crisp edges. Toast with butter that melted just so. Bacon you could hear before you could smell. Oranges that sprayed light into the air when you peeled them. Tomatoes that tasted like a garden and not a warehouse. You remember a diner where the waitress called you honey, and the coffee tasted like coffee, and you could hear the clink of porcelain instead of rotors. You remember a kitchen where you stole bites from a pan and got swatted with a towel for it and laughed and swore you'd help with dishes later. The jungle weaponizes those memories. It plays them like a radio you can't turn off while you spoon grey stew into a mouth that wants to taste colour. Every now and then there's hot chow. A field kitchen appears like a mirage, steam rising, metal trays, a line that looks like a parade of ghosts. You hold your mess kit like a grail and move forward one shuffle at a time, smelling real heat, real spice, something that was cooked on purpose. You sit on a crate or a rock or just the ground, and you eat like someone who believes again. And then it's over. The line dissolves, the pans are empty, and the jungle swallows the smell before your plate is clean. You talk about it for a day, and then you stop because talking makes it feel like a loss. Illness changes the calculation. Food turns into a threat when your stomach becomes a fist. Men go quiet, pale, sweat pouring off them even when the sun hides. You hear the retching from the bushes, and you stop making jokes about ham and lima beans for a while. The medbag comes out, tablets get forced under tongues. Someone holds a canteen to a mouth that keeps saying it's fine. It isn't. The jungle loves weakness and finds it efficiently. You wish for broth and toast like a child, but there's only cans and crackers and water that tastes like pennies. You learn to sit with a man and count his breaths while the line waits, and then you learn how to get him up and moving because the line can't wait forever. When it rains, food becomes a puzzle you solve with wet hands. The labels slough off, the ink runs, the lids slip under your fingers. The contents water themselves whether they like the idea or not. You eat rain in everything you eat. You tilt the can in under your poncho and pretend you're dry and you're not. A mosquito drowns in your pudding and you fish it out and keep eating because standards are a pre-war concept. Mud streaks your spoon and you wipe it on your pant leg, which is also mud, and you stop pretending any of this can be fixed by pretending. You develop rituals not because you're sentimental, but because ritual is the only boundary between you and the jungle's appetite. You always open the dessert first, just to see if mercy arrived. You always set the crackers aside somewhere high and dry for exactly 30 seconds until a line of ants proves there is no high and dry. You always take one swallow of water before your first bite, one after, like bookends that keep the page of the meal from falling out. You always clean the P38 with your thumb and wipe your thumb on your sleeve, and somehow that makes you feel like you've kept a promise. Night eating is different. The dark shrinks the world to your hands and your mouth. You don't use a light unless you have to. You learn the weight of each can, the hiss each lid makes, the feel of the spoon finding the bottom. Sounds carry strangely. Someone 4 men away sounds like he's beside you. Someone beside you sounds like he's below your feet. You taste more and name less. The jungle breathes around you, and you eat quietly so as not to wake it up, even though it never sleeps. You finish, fold the lid double, triple, tuck it into a pocket so it won't flash moonlight, and you lean back against your pack and tell yourself your stomach is full enough to barter with sleep. You carry the smell of your food with you when you move again. It clings to your sleeves, your beard stubble, the band of your helmet, and you swear you can hear the jungle sniff. Dogs would love you right now. So would rats. So would anything with teeth and time. You taste the last meal in your burps, and you hate that intimacy. You chew gum to trick your own mouth into a different story, mint over metal, sweet over brine. And for 5 minutes, you convince yourself you're not a walk-in pantry for insects and memories. There's talk in every unit of a guy who can cook with nothing, a wizard who makes a casserole out of 2 cans and a cracker, and a miracle he keeps in a pocket. The stories shift from squad to squad. Sometimes he's from Louisiana, and everything gets a shake of something red. Sometimes he's from New York, and swears loudly at the food, and somehow that helps. Sometimes he's from a town so small no one has heard of it, and he can fry an egg on a can lid without oil because that's just what he learned. Everyone wants to believe in him because believing in him means the food isn't just endurance, it's improv. It's control where there isn't any. There are days you're too tired to eat, and you do anyway, because not eating is like leaving a hole in your armour. You shovel bites in between orders and curses, and you don't remember the taste. Only the lift that comes 15 minutes later. A small light turning on in your legs. There are days you eat too fast and pay for it while you're moving. Cramps folding you in half, while the line keeps going, and you learn to breathe through pain with your teeth together. There are days you trade everything you have for one thing you want, and then you look down at your empty pockets, and you wonder what you're going to want later, and you shrug because later is fiction. You don't take pictures of the food. You don't write about it in letters beyond a joke your mother will worry over and misread. You don't describe the exact way a can of pears made a man cry, or how a packet of instant coffee kept a guy from falling asleep on his feet and walking off a trail into nothing. You don't talk about the can lids that cut thumbs and bled onto crackers that were eaten anyway. You don't mention the time someone bit down on a pebble that somehow found its way into a mouthful of stew, and everyone laughed like they'd found a diamond. You keep it all filed under necessary, which is the drawer where you put the part of yourself that you'll sort out later, except later keeps moving. You learn to carry one extra thing for someone else. A packet, a can, a candy you saved. You learn that giving it at the right moment changes the day for a man in a way orders and lectures never will. You learn that receiving it when you didn't ask and didn't expect feels like a rope thrown across a river that was already up to your neck. You learn that food is language and grammar in a place where both are usually shouting. Toward evening, if evening even declares itself under the canopy, you notice the smoke in the air that doesn't come from a cigarette. That sticky sweetness that rides low and fills your mouth even when you keep it closed. You swallow hard and pretend it's nothing, the way you always pretend, and you tuck the last can away and feel its cold weight like a promise you didn't make. You check the bottle, 2 drops left, and you touch it like you're patting a pocket for keys you don't own anymore. You shoulder the pack, the straps finding their grooves in your bones, and you stand because sitting is a vote for tomorrow, and you can't afford ballots. The jungle breathes, the radios crackle, someone says something you don't catch, and you look down at your hands and they smell like tin and salt and a little heat, and there's a smear of something on your sleeve that could be beans or dirt or both. You wipe it and it smears farther, and you stop because that's how it goes. Food goes where it wants, and so does everything else here. You fall back into the line, and the column starts to move, and somewhere far off a sound rolls over the trees like weather. Not thunder, not quite. A thump followed by a roar that tastes like chemicals and metal and heat, and it climbs into your sinuses and settles behind your eyes. You breathe out and it's still there, a smell that turns air into memory, and the line keeps moving because the line always moves, and the taste of the last meal has already been replaced by something you can't chew, only carry. Smell is the one sense you can't turn off. You can close your eyes against the sight of the jungle. You can shove plugs into your ears to dull the gunfire. You can ignore the ache of your shoulders until the next mile, but you can't stop breathing. You breathe because you have to, and every breath in Vietnam is a reminder that the world here is built to cling to you. The smells of this place don't stay in the air. They stitch themselves into your uniform, your hair, your gear, even the inside of your nose. They follow you around like ghosts. You might wish you could get used to it, but you never do. You just carry it, mile after mile, day after day. There are two dominant scents that own this war. One is industrial, mechanical, chemical, the sharp bite of things designed to burn a forest off the face of the earth. The other is human, biological, personal, the sour tang of sweat, rot, and desperation. Napalm and sweat. They don't just mix, they fuse. Together they create a perfume of misery that defines the jungle more than the green, more than the mud, more than the sound of helicopters overhead. Napalm announces itself before you even see the fire. You'll know it's been used because the air shifts, thickens, fills with that sickly sweet chemical tang that scratches the back of your throat. Gasoline and soap, someone once said, like a gas station exploded in a laundromat. It burns your nose, clings to your tongue, and rides the back of your throat like you swallowed a match. The smell drifts for miles, riding wind currents through the canopy, settling on your skin like a film you can't wash off. Even if you weren't anywhere near the strike, you'll smell it, taste it, carry it with you the rest of the day. When you are near it, the experience is worse. The fire comes down with a roar, a wave of heat that makes the air shimmer, a rush of sound that makes your ribs rattle. Leaves, branches, entire trees go up at once, the jungle screaming as it burns, animals fleeing or cooking where they hide. The fire devours everything, and the smoke it throws into the air is black, oily, endless. You choke on it even from a distance, your lungs filling with chemical ash, your eyes stinging until they pour tears down your cheeks. And mixed into that smoke is the napalm smell, sweet and wrong, a smell that doesn't belong to nature. It doesn't dissipate. It lingers, heavy and sticky, days after the flames die. You think you'll never forget it, and you're right, you won't. The smell of napalm clings to memories as much as it clings to fabric. Years later, you'll catch a whiff of something. Burning trash, spilled fuel, soap in a hot shower, and you'll be right back in the jungle, watching a wall of fire consume the trees, feeling your throat close, hearing the dull thunder of flames eating oxygen. The smell rewires your brain. Then there's the other smell, the one that never needs airplanes or bombs to create. Sweat. Pure, human, constant. It's inescapable. The moment you step out of your makeshift bed in the morning, you're already soaked. Before you've strapped on your rucksack, before you've eaten your grey breakfast, before you've even rubbed the sleep out of your eyes, your body is leaking salt water like a faucet with a broken valve. The uniform clings, damp and sour, spreading your smell outward like a beacon. The gear soaks it up, canvas straps turning dark with sweat stains that never fade. Helmets lined with fabric that smells like a locker room no one's cleaned in years. And you're not alone. You're packed in with 12, 2, sometimes more men, all sweating the same, all exhaling heat, all carrying their own personal stench. Together you form a collective odour so strong it could knock a horse unconscious. You march in it, sit in it, sleep in it. You learn to recognise individuals not by their faces in the dim light, but by the particular notes of their smell. One man carries more tobacco in his sweat, another reeks of garlic from a care package, another smells faintly of the ointment he rubs on his blisters. You stop noticing until you do, and when you do, it's unbearable. The sweat mixes with everything else. Jungle rot, mildew, gun oil, wet socks, and the faint but ever-present stink of latrines dug too shallow and too close. It becomes a stew, a body-wide marinade, and you live in it because you can't escape it. Washing doesn't help. You splash river water on your arms, dunk your head, maybe even strip down if you're lucky, but 5 minutes later, you're just as bad. The humidity refuses to let anything dry, and damp clothes smell worse than unwashed ones. You put your uniform back on, and it feels like slipping into a costume made of rot. What really turns your stomach is the way sweat works its way into the food. You crack open a can of Rations, and it's already clinging to your fingers, dripping into the grey meat paste before you even notice. You wipe your hands on your trousers, but they're already soaked. Everything you eat tastes faintly of salt, grime, and the jungle itself. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. It's calories, it keeps you moving. But it does matter, because it's one more way the place reminds you that you don't own your body anymore. The jungle does. Napalm and sweat together create something worse. On days when air support has been called in, when you're downwind from a strike, the chemical sweetness of burning fuel mixes with the human stench of exhausted bodies. The two odours merge, cling, settle into your nose like cement. You breathe in, and your brain can't decide whether to gag at the sour human salt or the cloying artificial sugar. You taste both in the back of your throat, and you want to spit, but even your spit tastes wrong. Sometimes the napalm smell overpowers the sweat, sometimes it's the other way around, but usually they're partners, hand in hand, a duet that drowns out everything else. You can't smell the flowers people write about in books. You can't smell the rain unless you really focus. You can't even smell the gunpowder unless it's fresh. All you smell is fire and flesh, chemicals and salt. It gets in your pores, under your fingernails, in your hair, and no matter how hard you scrub, you're carrying it into tomorrow. The jungle itself contributes its own background odours. Rotting vegetation, stagnant water, animals dead and half buried. But those fade. Napalm doesn't. Sweat doesn't. They dominate, own the air, and choke out every other note. You don't talk about it much. Smell isn't something you share in letters home. You can describe the rain, the heat, the bugs, even the food. But how do you explain to someone that the air tastes wrong all the time? That every breath feels like breathing through a rag soaked in chemicals and salt? You don't. You keep it to yourself. And maybe that's why it stays with you longest. You start to imagine what you must smell like to someone outside. If a fresh recruit walks in, if a civilian crosses paths with you on rare leave, what hits them first isn't your voice or your uniform. It's the wall of odour rolling off you like a fog. You're embarrassed for half a second, and then you remember there's no point. You can't stop it. The war has its own cologne, and you're drenched in it whether you want to be or not. Even now, in the middle of it, you know this is what you'll remember most vividly. Not the sound of gunfire, not the sight of the jungle, not even the taste of grey rations. It's the smell that will come back. The smell of napalm drifting through the canopy, sweet and suffocating. The smell of your own body breaking down, sweating itself into exhaustion, saturating every piece of cloth you own. The smell of war. And as the day stretches on, as the sun climbs higher and the air grows thicker, the smell only intensifies. There's no breeze to carry it away, no rain strong enough to wash it clean, no distance far enough to escape it. It rides with you through every march, every firefight, every restless night on damp ground. It's your constant companion, your invisible enemy, your unwanted roommate. And you breathe it in again and again because you have no choice, because the jungle won't give you anything else. The paper feels almost out of place in your hands. It's too light, too clean, too fragile for a world built of mud, steel and gunpowder. When someone shouts mail call, men gather faster than they would for food or orders, because nothing slices through the monotony of sweat and marching like the chance to hear from a world that doesn't smell like mildew and napalm. You sit cross-legged in the dirt, rucksack as a backrest, helmet off for the first time all day, and you hold the envelope like it's glass. The corner is bent, the ink smeared from humidity, and there's a faint smell of home clinging to it, though you don't know if that's real or just your brain inventing mercy. The handwriting makes your chest tighten. It's shaky, maybe hurried, but it's a human scrawl from a place with kitchens, sidewalks and Sunday mornings. It's proof that somewhere else exists, a place where this war is a headline instead of the air in people's lungs. You tear the top carefully, because rushing feels wrong, and you unfold the pages. The words jump out unevenly. News about the weather, about the neighbour's new car, about a cousin's wedding. Small things. Mundane things. Things that sound like paradise when you're sitting in a jungle where your socks haven't been dry in weeks. She writes that she hopes you're eating enough, and you laugh without humour, glancing at the empty can of rations beside you. She writes that she's proud, and you feel a knot form in your throat because you don't feel proud at all. You feel tired, but you keep reading. The letter becomes a kind of meal. You chew each word slowly, tasting it, swallowing it, holding on to it so it lasts longer. You fold it back up, unfold it again, read the same sentences 3 times, as if the repetition makes them more real. Around you, other men do the same, heads bowed, lips moving silently, eyes wide and wet in the dim light. The squad is quiet for once, not from orders, not from fear, but from hunger of a different kind. Sometimes the words bring laughter. A joke scribbled in the margin, a child's spelling mistake, a story about a dog tearing up the garden. The laughter is strange, too loud, almost brittle, but it's there. Sometimes the words bring silence. A girlfriend who stopped writing. A wife who says she can't wait anymore. A mother who tells the truth, too plainly, about another boy from the neighbourhood who won't be coming home. Men fold those letters quickly, stuff them into pockets, and walk off alone. No one asks. Everyone knows. You write back when you can. But writing here feels like lying. You want to say you're fine, you're safe, you're eating well, you're sleeping enough. You write those things, your pencil scratching against damp paper, your hand cramping from awkward angles. You try not to let sweat drip onto the page. You avoid talking about the smell of rot, the sound of screams, the taste of fear. You make jokes instead, tell stories about the heat, about the bugs, about the food. You make it sound like a camping trip with bad catering, because the truth wouldn't fit in the margins. The letters pile up in your pack, folded and creased, edges soft from constant handling. Some men carry pictures, edges bent, colours fading. A girl in a sundress, a baby in a crib, a house with a porch. They pull them out at night, under ponchos, squinting in the dim glow of a flashlight half covered by a hand. They stare until their eyes blur, then tuck them back into pockets close to their hearts, as if the paper could act like armour. When a letter doesn't come, it hurts more than when one does. You wait, you hope, you imagine excuses. The mail is slow, the bag was lost, the sergeant misplaced it. You tell yourself it'll come tomorrow. Tomorrow stretches into weeks, and the silence grows heavier than the pack on your shoulders. Men who stop receiving letters change. Their eyes sink, their jokes fade, their steps drag. They march the same miles, eat the same rations, fire the same rifles, but something inside them goes quieter. The jungle doesn't care about letters, but you do. They're the only proof that you're still tethered to a world outside mud and gun oil. They're reminders that someone knows your name. Someone waits for you. Someone still thinks of you as more than a silhouette in a helmet. You fold them carefully, tuck them into plastic, and carry them into every firefight, every march, every sleepless night. They're not protection, not really, but they feel like it. You never forget them, even the short ones, even the ones that say nothing more than be safe or miss you. You remember the curves of the letters, the way the ink bled into the page, the faint smell of paper that doesn't belong in the jungle. You remember the feeling of your chest loosening for just a few minutes while you read. You remember the ache that followed, the sharper homesickness, the knowledge that you can't touch what the letter describes. Some men leave the letters behind when their packs get too heavy. They regret it instantly, but the jungle doesn't give them second chances. Others carry them until they disintegrate, words smudged, paper falling apart, nothing left but scraps. And still, those scraps get tucked into helmets, pockets, boots, because even broken, they're better than nothing. The day's march resumes, the sweat pours, the rifles clatter, but inside your pocket, the letter presses against your chest. You tap it once, absent-mindedly, as if checking it's still there, and you know you'll unfold it again tonight, and the night after that, until the paper wears thin and your eyes memorize every line. Sleep isn't something you do here. It's something that happens to you if your body manages to overpower your brain for a few minutes before the next noise jerks you back awake. In the jungle, sleep isn't rest. It's negotiation. You're bargaining with mud, insects, fear, and exhaustion. And most nights the deal doesn't go your way. The ground is always the first enemy. It doesn't matter where you try to lie down. If it isn't mud, it's roots. If it isn't roots, it's rocks. If it isn't rocks, it's something alive that doesn't care about your need for rest. You scrape away leaves with your boot, clear a patch as best you can, throw down your poncho, and lower yourself onto it like you're lying in a puddle. Which you usually are. Within minutes, the water seeps through, soaking your uniform, cooling your skin just enough to make you shiver. You shift, roll, curse, and finally accept that you're going to wake up wetter than you started. Then come the insects. Mosquitoes, of course. They find the one spot you didn't cover, slip through the netting, whine in your ear until you slap yourself in the face trying to get rid of them. Ants march across your chest like you built the trail just for them. A spider crawls across your cheek, and you're suddenly wide awake, swiping at your face, convinced it's still there even after it's gone. Leeches attach to your ankles while you're too tired to notice. You wake up scratching, bleeding, shaking your boots to make sure they're empty before you put them back on. The jungle never sleeps. It screams. Frogs croak so loud you think someone's blowing a horn beside your head. Birds shriek from the trees. Monkeys howl like they're laughing at you, and insects buzz in choruses so loud it feels like electricity running through the air. Every branch that cracks in the darkness sounds like a footstep. Every rustle in the grass sounds like someone crawling toward you. You lie there gripping your rifle, staring into the black, waiting for shapes that never appear. And then there are the man-made noises, the cough of a buddy 2 feet away, the muttered curse of someone rolling over, the click of a safety being checked again and again because the owner can't stop fiddling with it in the dark. Radios squawk occasionally, a burst of static that jerks you upright. Helicopters in the distance chop at the night, their blades a constant reminder that the war doesn't clock out just because the sun did. Artillery thuds far away, each one a low rumble in your chest, reminding you that someone else is awake, someone else is dying, while you're pretending to rest. Even when nothing happens, you're still on edge. You're never allowed to fully sleep. Someone always has watch. Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's the man beside you. But either way, you know someone is supposed to be awake, eyes scanning the dark, finger on the trigger. That knowledge doesn't help, because you also know men fall asleep on watch. You've seen it. Heads nodding, rifles sliding out of hands, the gentle snore that makes your stomach drop. And if he's asleep, who's watching? No one. Which means you sleep lighter than ever, one ear open, one eye cracked, your body refusing to sink all the way down because the risk is too high. Your body betrays you anyway. Exhaustion always wins eventually. Marching all day under 100 pounds of gear, sweating until you're hollow, eating food that feels like punishment. Your body demands a break. Your eyelids droop. Your muscles loosen, and you drift off whether you want to or not. But the sleep is shallow, fragmented. You dream of home, of food, of clean sheets, but the dreams twist into nightmares within minutes. The roar of an engine becomes a helicopter crash. The crack of a stick becomes an ambush. You jerk awake, gasping, heart racing, rifle clutched tight, and realise you've only been out for 10 minutes. Sometimes you're lucky enough to find a hooch, a makeshift shelter of ponchos strung together. Something to keep the rain off. It helps a little. At least the drops aren't hammering your face all night. But the ground is still the ground, and the air inside is heavy, damp, sour, with the smell of a dozen bodies packed together. You lie there shoulder to shoulder, listening to men breathe, cough, mutter, and snore. You try to shift without waking them. Try to claim a square foot of comfort, but there isn't any. You close your eyes and tell yourself you'll take whatever you get. Rain makes it worse. When it pours, it doesn't matter what cover you have. The water gets through. It runs down the trees, drips off the leaves, floods the ground until you're lying in a puddle deep enough to swim in. Your poncho collects it, your pack soaks it up, your boots fill. You try to shift under the downpour, try to find a dry spot, but the rain follows. You resign yourself to being soaked, shivering in warm air that still makes your teeth chatter. Sleep in the rain is more of a dare than a possibility. The smells don't help. Sweat, mildew, wet canvas, damp socks, gun oil, and always faintly the acrid tang of gunpowder. Your nose is full even when the air is still. When someone farts in the hooch, it's catastrophic. You groan, cover your face, and wonder how this became your life. But you can't escape it. You breathe in, hold it, breathe out, and drift back toward unconsciousness anyway. Because tired is stronger than disgust. Sometimes you wake to rats running over your chest, scratching through your pack, gnawing at your rations. You swat, curse, kick at them, and they scatter for a moment before returning, bolder than ever. Sometimes you wake to the sound of boots outside, and for a moment you're sure it's the enemy, heart hammering, finger on the trigger, until you realise it's just a buddy going to piss. The adrenaline doesn't fold right away. You lie there trembling, eyes wide, waiting for the rustle of grass to mean something worse. And then there are the nights when it is worse, when flares burst overhead, bathing the jungle in white light, when gunfire cracks through the darkness and you're scrambling out of your poncho, feet slipping in the mud, helmet sliding over your eyes, rifle raised, lungs heaving. Sleep turns to chaos in an instant, and you're wide awake, heart racing, stomach flipping, trying to figure out if you're alive or dreaming. Sometimes it's just a false alarm, nerves twitching too hard. Sometimes it's real. Either way, sleep is gone, and you won't see it again until exhaustion drags you under. The irony is, even when you do get a stretch of quiet, you can't sleep properly. Your body doesn't remember how. You're too wired, too keyed up, too used to half resting with one eye open. You lie there staring at the canopy, listening to the chorus of insects, waiting for something to happen. You shift, sigh, roll, check your watch, close your eyes and open them again 10 seconds later. Sleep feels like a luxury someone else invented, and when you finally do sink into it, it's never deep, it's never satisfying. It's always interrupted by a noise, by a nightmare, by a shove on your shoulder telling you it's your turn for watch. You drag yourself up, rub your eyes, grip your rifle, and stare into the dark for 2 hours, swatting mosquitoes and wondering if you'll ever know what real rest feels like again. You start to forget what beds feel like. You remember vaguely softness, sheets, a pillow that cradles your head, a blanket that warms instead of smothers. But the memory fades. The jungle replaces it with mud, damp, and discomfort. You accept it. You stop longing for comfort and start longing for just one night without interruption. One night without waking up to your heart pounding in your throat. You carry the lack of sleep into every day. Your legs feel heavier. Your eyes blur. Your hands tremble when you clean your rifle. You snap at men you'd normally laugh with, forget things you should remember. stumble more often on the trail. Sleep deprivation becomes its own war, a constant attrition that wears you down faster than bullets. You know, you're slower, clumsier, more likely to make mistakes. And still, there's nothing you can do. The war doesn't care if you're tired. The jungle doesn't pause so you can nap. You move forward half asleep and hope that's enough. The days bleed into nights, the nights into days, until you stop measuring time by hours of sleep and start measuring it by moments stolen. 5 minutes leaning against a tree, 10 minutes with your head on your pack during a break, a quick doze in the helicopter, head bouncing against the bulkhead, waking every time turbulence rattles your teeth. You piece together rest like scraps of cloth, stitching them into something barely functional, and somewhere in the back of your mind you wonder what it will be like when you're home. Will you be able to close your eyes without flinching? Will you be able to sleep through the night without waking at every noise? Will the silence feel comforting, or will it feel like the moment before an ambush? You don't know. All you know is that here, in this place, sleep isn't rest, it's surrender. And surrender isn't safe. So you lie there in the dark, mud seeping into your uniform, mosquitoes whining in your ears, rifle across your chest, eyes half shut, mind half awake. And you wait for the next noise, the next shove, the next order. Because here, sleep is never yours. It belongs to the war. War is supposed to be about action. At least that's what people who've never been in one believe. They picture it as constant firefights, endless explosions, dramatic charges. They don't picture the hours you spend sitting in the mud, staring at nothing, waiting for something that may or may not happen. Out here, the truth is less cinematic. Most of the time, it's not fighting, it's waiting. And that waiting is its own kind of torture, stretched thin between fear and boredom. Two sides of the same coin you flip over and over again every day. Fear is easy to understand. It's the spike in your chest when you hear a branch snap in the dark. It's the way your breath sticks when a bird explodes out of the underbrush and you're convinced for half a second it's the enemy. It's the way your stomach knots when you see the sergeant scanning the tree line, too still, too quiet, and you realise he hears something you don't. Fear is obvious, sharp, electric. It keeps you alert, keeps your rifle ready, keeps your eyes wide and your muscles tense. But it doesn't leave. Fear doesn't just arrive with danger and leave when it's over. It hangs around, a constant weight in your chest, tightening your shoulders, chewing your gut. You live with it so long that it becomes normal, a background hum behind every thought. You feel it when you're eating, when you're drinking, when you're trying to sleep. It becomes a companion you hate but can't shake. You don't remember what it's like not to be afraid. You only remember the degree. Low fear, high fear, panic, terror. Those are the settings now. And then there's boredom, which feels ridiculous when you say it out loud. How can you be bored in a war zone? But you are. Because most of your time isn't fighting. It's marching. It's sitting. It's standing. It's lying prone in the mud, staring at the same patch of vines for 6 hours while nothing moves. It's listening to the same bug buzz past your ear 100 times. It's counting the seconds until the sun goes down, and then counting them again until it comes up. It's memorising the shape of the tree across from you, because you've had nothing else to look at for days. Boredom out here isn't like boredom back home. Back home, boredom means you don't have anything fun to do. Here, Boredom means you're trapped in a holding pattern where nothing is happening, but everything could happen. You can't relax, you can't close your eyes, you can't take your boots off, even when your feet are screaming. You just sit, rifle across your lap, eyes burning, ears straining, waiting for something that might never come. And it feels endless. The waiting grinds you down. Your mind loops. You replay old conversations, old memories. You think about home so much, it starts to feel like a dream. You imagine what your friends are doing at this exact moment. Eating dinner, driving to work, watching a baseball game. And you're here, in the mud, sweating, itching, counting mosquitoes. Because the army told you to hold this position until further notice. And further notice never comes. Fear and boredom feed each other. You sit too long without action, and boredom makes your mind restless. Restless turns into paranoia. Every rustle becomes a threat. Every shadow a man with a rifle. Every silence a trap. You grip your weapon tighter, eyes darting, heart pounding, and suddenly the boredom is gone, replaced by fear. Then the moment passes, nothing happens, and you sink back into the stillness, back into the endless wait. Over and over again, hour after hour, day after day. Sometimes the waiting is worse than the fighting, because at least in a firefight, you know where you stand. You know what to do. Point, shoot, move, survive. The waiting leaves you with nothing but yourself. Nothing but your thoughts, your nerves, your body twitching from too much adrenaline and not enough release. It's like being wound up with nowhere to go. You want something to happen, anything, just to break the tension. And then, when it does happen, when the first shot cracks out of the tree line, you realise you didn't want it at all. You wanted release without risk, and that doesn't exist here. The boredom invents its own rituals. You count bullets, even though you counted them already. You check your gear, adjust your straps, clean your rifle again and again until the metal gleams. You carve marks into the stock, doodle on scrap paper, flick your lighter open and shut, chew gum until your jaw aches. Anything to give your hand something to do. Anything to keep your brain from folding in on itself. You play games quietly, betting on who can stay still the longest, who can balance a cracker on their helmet, who can recite the longest list of meals they miss back home. The games don't last. They always end with someone sighing, staring off, chewing the inside of their cheek. The waiting gets inside your body. Your muscles twitch, your legs cramp, your back knots from sitting in the same crouch for hours. Your eyes water from staring too long at nothing. Your ears ring from straining at sounds that never resolve. Your body wants to move, to do something, to release the energy building inside it. But you can't. Movement makes noise. Noise draws attention. Attention gets you killed. So you sit still, trembling slightly, sweat dripping, until you're sure you'll explode. And then you don't. You just keep waiting. Fear changes the way you hear time. A minute stretches into an hour when you're convinced something's about to happen. Boredom changes it the other way. An hour collapses into nothing when you realise you've been sitting in the same spot, staring at the same tree, and your brain stopped noticing the passage of time 20 minutes ago. Days blur. You don't know what day of the week it is, don't know how long you've been here, don't care. The only markers are sun up, sundown, mail call, and the rare resupply. Everything else is just time lost to waiting. You wonder if this is what breaks men. Not the firefights, not the bullets, but the constant anticipation of bullets that never come. The endless waiting for an explosion that might never arrive. Your nerves fray. You start at shadows. You flinch at voices. You jump when someone claps you on the back. You grind your teeth in your sleep. Mutter curses in your dreams. Wake up with your rifle clenched in your hands. The waiting rewires you. It makes you part animal, twitching at every movement, listening for every sound, unable to rest even when you want to. And yet, somehow, you survive it, because you have to. You find ways to live with it, to carry it without letting it crush you. You joke with the man beside you. You whisper stories about girls back home. You hum songs under your breath, off-key, until someone tells you to shut up. You carve little notches into your helmet band, one for each day survived. The rituals don't erase the fear or the boredom, but they give shape to the waiting, and sometimes that's enough. The waiting always ends, one way or another, sometimes with orders to move, sometimes with gunfire breaking the silence, sometimes with nothing at all, just the sun going down and the relief shift taking over. But it always comes back, because that's what this war is. Not endless action, not constant firefights, but endless waiting. Waiting to march, waiting to eat, waiting for orders, waiting for the next attack, waiting to go home. And every moment of waiting is soaked in fear and boredom, the twin poisons you drink day after day until they taste normal. Out here, war isn't just fought with bullets. It's fought with nerves, with patience, with the ability to sit still in the mud for hours while your brain screams at you to run, with the ability to keep your hands steady even when your insides are vibrating from too much adrenaline and too little sleep, with the ability to laugh quietly at nothing because the alternative is losing yourself completely. And so you sit, you wait, you fear, you bore, and you keep breathing, because that's the only thing you're allowed to do without permission. You don't choose who you end up with. The army chooses. You're thrown together with men from towns you've never heard of. Men you wouldn't have spoken to back home. Men who are truck drivers, farm hands, bartenders, mechanics, high school dropouts, college kids who didn't make the cut for deferment. You line up, get the same haircut, the same uniform, the same rifle. The army makes you identical on the outside, and the jungle makes sure you stay that way inside. Out here, individuality gets ground down until what's left is the squad. It starts as necessity. You can't survive alone. You need the guy in front to cover your blind spots. You need the guy behind to carry the radio. You need the man on the machine gun to keep the enemy from chewing you up. The jungle is too big, the enemy too invisible, the weight too heavy. You lean on each other because you have no choice. You learn fast that if one man screws up, you all pay for it. So you yell at each other, curse each other, shove each other into line, because discipline isn't about respect. It's about survival. After a while it goes deeper. You start to know each other's rhythms. You know who snores, who mutters in his sleep, who gets jittery on watch, who always chews gum to stay awake. You can tell by the sound of footsteps who's coming up behind you. You can tell by the way a man breathes whether he's scared, angry, or just tired. The squad becomes a body with a dozen parts, each moving differently, but all working toward the same miserable goal: getting through the day alive. You learn to share everything. Cigarettes pass down the line, one man lighting, the rest leaning in for a drag. A can of peaches split 6 ways, each man scooping syrup with filthy fingers and not caring. One packet of Kool-Aid powder dumped into a canteen and passed around until it's gone. You trade socks, knives, stories, lies. A man with extra hot sauce becomes a king. A man with letters from home reads them out loud until his voice cracks and no one laughs, because everyone knows what it feels like to need that sound. You learn to speak without words, a hand signal in the dark, a glance across the line, a tap on the shoulder. You develop jokes so old they don't even need the punchline anymore. Just the setup, and the squad groans together. You laugh at things that aren't funny because laughing is safer than silence. You curse at each other with affection, insults traded back and forth like currency. The words don't matter. The tone does. It says, you're still here. I'm still here. We're both still alive. The jungle eats privacy. You piss together, shit together, sleep shoulder to shoulder in hooches, too small for comfort. You know who has athlete's foot, who snores, who farts in his sleep, who cries quietly when he thinks no one notices. You see each other at your worst, and somehow it makes the bond tighter. Shame doesn't survive here. Only survival does. Fear becomes easier to bear when it's shared. When you're on watch alone, every noise feels like a threat. When you're on watch with a buddy, every noise becomes something to comment on, something to whisper about, something to shrug off together. You lean against each other, rifles ready, eyes scanning, and the minutes pass faster. You tell each other stories, some true, most invented, because words fill the dark better than silence. You promise to wake him if you nod off, and he promises the same, and maybe you both do. But somehow the squad still wakes up in one piece. The worst moments cement the bond. Dragging a buddy out of the mud when he twists his ankle. Hauling a man under fire because he caught a bullet in the leg. Sharing your last cigarette with someone shaking too hard to light his own. Covering for each other when the sergeant's breathing down your neck. The squad doesn't forget those things. They get etched into memory deeper than scars. You don't think about love, not in the romantic sense, but the word fits. It's a love born of necessity, of proximity, of knowing that no one else on earth understands what this feels like, except the men sweating, bleeding, cursing right beside you. It's a love that doesn't need to be spoken, doesn't need to be written down. It shows up in the way you pass the canteen, the way you nudge a man awake for his turn at watch, the way you split a piece of gum without asking. You see men die, and that bond cuts deeper. You watch the life drain out of someone you just shared a joke with an hour ago, and it changes you. The squad closes ranks, grows harder, meaner, quieter. You carry his gear, pack his letters, clean his rifle. You don't cry in front of the sergeant, but later, in the dark, the whole squad goes silent, each man staring at nothing, hearing his voice in their heads. You don't talk about it the next day. You don't have to. The bond absorbs it, carries it forwards, makes you tighter because it has to. Brothers in arms aren't born in training or on parade grounds. They're born in mud, under fire, in the moments when you're sure you're done, and the man next to you proves you wrong. They're born when you're too tired to lift your pack, and someone hoists it onto your shoulders without a word. They're born when you're too scared to move, and someone slaps your helmet, forces you forward. They're born when the whole squad is broken down to nothing but bone and sweat, and still moves together, step by step, because that's the only way out. It isn't perfect. You fight. You snap at each other, throw punches, curse until your throats hurt. The pressure cooks, tempers down to raw nerves. A man chews too loud, another doesn't pull his weight, another falls asleep on watch. You scream, you threaten, you even come to blows. But an hour later, you're back in line, rifles raised, shoulders touching. Anger burns fast out here. The bond burns slower, steadier, hotter. It outlasts the fights because it has to. The army talks about unit cohesion, about discipline, about esprit de corps. They put it in manuals, teach it in classrooms. Out here, it's simpler. You trust the men beside you because not trusting them means dying. You lean on them because standing alone isn't an option. You keep moving because if you don't, you drag everyone down. And over time, that necessity grows into something harder to explain, something deeper than words. Years from now, when you're back home, when the war is a memory you can't shake, it won't be the speeches or the orders you remember. It'll be the faces of the men who sweated beside you, the sound of their laughter, the rhythm of their boots. It'll be the way you all sat in silence together, chewing the same miserable rations, swatting the same mosquitoes, waiting for the same ambush that never came. It'll be the way they made you feel less alone in a place designed to isolate you completely. You didn't choose them. They didn't choose you. But out here, choice doesn't matter. Out here, you're brothers, whether you like it or not. And eventually you do like it, because it's the only thing that makes the mud, the fear, the boredom, the waiting bearable. You stop being a collection of strangers in uniforms and start being one thing, one body, one miserable, stubborn organism that keeps moving forward together. And when one of you falls, you feel it like a limb torn away. The bond doesn't die with him. It carries forward, heavier, sharper, a reminder of what you've lost and what you still have. And you keep moving, because that's what brothers do. The day you come home isn't the day the war ends. That's the first thing nobody tells you. There's no whistle that blows, no curtain that falls, no clear line where one life stops and another begins. One day you're in the jungle, boots rotting on your feet, sweat dripping into your eyes, rifle across your lap. The next, you're on a plane, strapped into a seat, the engine's humming, men around you staring at nothing. And then, just like that, you're home. But it doesn't feel like home. It feels like a place you once lived that now belongs to someone else. The first shock is how clean everything looks. The streets are swept. The houses are painted. The air doesn't smell like rot, gun oil, or burning fuel. It smells like asphalt after rain, fresh cut grass, bread baking in a corner bakery. You breathe it in, and instead of relief, you feel disoriented. Your lungs don't trust it. Your nose waits for the sting of smoke, the bite of napalm, the sour tang of your own sweat. When it doesn't come, you feel off balance, like you've stepped into the wrong world. People talk too much. They smile too easily. They ask questions they don't want the answers to. How was it over there? You glad to be back? You nod, smile, say something vague about being fine, because the truth would stop the conversation dead. The truth is mud, fear, boredom, pain, and you can't pack that into a polite sentence at a dinner table. So you say you're good, you say you're adjusting, you say you're happy to be home. Inside, you feel like you're lying in every direction. The sounds are wrong. Cars backfiring make your heart spike. Fireworks send you to the ground before you realise it's a holiday. A door slams, and your hands twitch toward where your rifle used to be. The city hums with traffic, with voices, with music, but your ears filter for gunfire, for helicopters. for mortars. They don't come, and you don't know if you're relieved or disappointed. Sleep doesn't fix itself just because you've left the jungle. You lie in a bed that feels too soft, too wide, too clean. The sheets are smooth, the pillow cradles your head, and it makes you restless. You toss, turn, sweat through your shirt, even though the room is cool. You close your eyes and the jungle is still there. The insects still buzz, the gunfire still cracks, the flares still burst overhead. You jerk awake, gasping, heart pounding, and stare at the ceiling fan until dawn. Everyone else in the house is asleep, and you wonder how they do it. Food is strange. Too flavourful, too fresh, too easy. Plates full of colour after months of cans full of grey. The first bite feels overwhelming, almost insulting. You chew, swallow, nod when someone asks if it's good. It is good. But your body doesn't believe it. Your stomach cramps. Your throat tightens. You miss the ritual of opening cans with a P38, of sharing with the squad, of eating with one hand while holding your rifle with the other. You never thought you'd miss rations, but you do, not for the taste, but for the context. Food at a table feels wrong when you're used to eating in mud. The people around you don't understand. They can't. They nod, they thank you, they call you a hero, but they don't know what that word means when you've spent months just trying to stay alive. They don't know what it feels like to lose a friend and keep marching the same day. They don't know what it feels like to be more afraid of silence than of gunfire. They don't know, and you can't tell them, because the words don't fit. So you smile, you nod, you change the subject. Inside, you feel the distance growing, mile by mile, until the living room feels as foreign as the jungle did. The wall follows you everywhere. It's in the way you sit with your back to the wall. It's in the way you scan crowds without meaning to. It's in the way you jump at loud noises. In the way you grip the edge of the table when a car backfires outside. It's in the way you can't walk down a street without checking rooftops, alleys, doorways. It's in the way you keep your boots by the bed, your bag packed, your keys in your pocket, because you don't believe in safety anymore. And then there are the ghosts. Not the kind that moan or rattle chains. The kind that look like the men you left behind. You see them in crowds, in doorways, in reflections. You hear their laughter in the voices of strangers. You smell their cigarettes on the wind. For a moment you believe they're there, that they made it back too. And then you blink, and the crowd shifts, and they're gone. You carry them anyway, tucked into the folds of your memory, their faces sharper than the present. Coming home doesn't mean coming back. The man who left doesn't exist anymore. The man who returned isn't finished being made. You stand in kitchens where you used to laugh, and you feel out of place. You walk down streets you once called familiar, and they feel like foreign ground. You sit at tables surrounded by family, and you love them, but you don't feel like you're sitting with them. You feel like you're watching from a distance, waiting for someone to shake you awake. Some men drink to bridge the gap. Some men fight. Some men withdraw, quiet, staring, lost in thought. Some men throw themselves into work, into families, into anything that distracts them from the feeling of being split in half. You do what you can, but the war doesn't leave. It just shifts, finds new corners of your mind to live in, waits until the middle of the night to remind you it's still there. You thought coming home would be the end, but it's not. It's another beginning, one you never asked for, one no one prepared you for. Out there, you had brothers, you had structure, you had orders. Back here, you have silence. You have questions no one asks. You have a distance no one sees. And so you learn to carry it. You learn to smile when people thank you. You learn to sleep in short bursts, to eat what's put in front of you, to sit in rooms that feel too quiet. You learn to live with ghosts. You learn that coming home isn't the same as coming back. One is geography, the other is something you're not sure is possible. The war most people think of isn't the one you lived. The version that made it into newspapers, movies, recruiting posters, and political speeches is cleaner, simpler, sharper around the edges. It's a war with clear beginnings and neat endings, where battles are won and lost on maps you can fold up and put in your pocket. It's a war of slogans, of freedom, of honour, of sacrifice. And it's almost unrecognisable to the men who sweated through it. Because the real war was mud, fear, bugs, boredom, and waiting. The real war was a body count no one wanted to admit they were keeping. The real war was naps in mud holes, socks that never dried, and helicopters that sometimes came for you, and sometimes didn't. The myth says you were warriors, trained, disciplined, part of a machine that moved with precision. The reality is you were kids with rifles, many barely out of high school, stumbling through a jungle that ate discipline as easily as it ate boots. Training faded the first time the heat wrapped itself around you like a suffocating blanket. The first time you realised the enemy knew the terrain better than you ever would. Precision was a luxury. Most of the time, it was chaos. Fire in every direction, men shouting over each other, radios hissing, orders coming in broken, and everyone just trying to make it through the next 10 minutes. The myth says battles were decisive, that you moved into a place, fought, and then owned it. The reality is you could fight for a hill all day, take it at sunset, and abandon it at dawn because it wasn't strategically useful anymore. You could clear a village in the morning, march away by afternoon, and the same village would be back in enemy hands by night. Nothing stayed won. You weren't advancing, you weren't retreating. You were just moving, burning calories, spilling blood, trading lives for statistics that didn't add up to victory. The myth says soldiers came home to parades, flags waving, bands playing, crowds cheering. The reality is you came home to silence, or worse. You stepped off the plane into airports where strangers turned their heads, muttered insults, or spat. People called you baby killers, murderers, villains in a war they didn't want. You didn't get banners. You didn't get music. You got cold stares and questions that weren't really questions at all. The myth says the war was about clear ideals. Freedom versus communism, democracy versus tyranny. The reality is, most of you didn't think about politics once the boots hit the ground. You thought about socks, food, water, sleep. You thought about not stepping on mines. You thought about keeping the guy next to you alive. Ideals were for speeches and newspapers. Reality was a leech in your boot, a bullet cracking past your ear, a letter folded in your pocket. The myth says courage looked like charging through gunfire, shouting, heroic music swelling in the background. The reality is courage looked like standing up when your knees didn't want to. Courage looked like putting one foot in front of the other when you hadn't slept in 3 days. Courage looked like dragging a buddy out of the mud while bullets snapped overhead, not because you wanted glory, but because leaving him wasn't an option. Courage was quiet, tired, sometimes ugly, and no one wrote songs about it. The myth says the jungle was just scenery, exotic backdrop for battles. The reality is the jungle was the enemy, just as dangerous as any man with a rifle. It soaked your socks, rotted your feet, swarmed you with insects, clawed at you with vines and thorns. It hid the enemy so well that you sometimes fired at shadows until your magazine was empty. It drowned you in sweat, baked you alive during the day, froze you at night. The jungle was everywhere, always pressing in, reminding you that you were foreign, out of place, unwelcome. The myth says you were always in control, that you chose when to fight, when to advance, when to retreat. The reality is you were always reacting to ambushes, to booby traps, to orders passed down from someone who'd never stepped into the mud with you. You weren't controlling the war. The war was controlling you. The enemy struck when they wanted. The jungle struck whenever it felt like it. And you? You stumbled along, hoping you'd make it to the next clearing. The myth says war forged heroes. The reality is war broke people. Some came home with bodies intact, but minds fractured, carrying ghosts that never stopped whispering. Some never came home at all, names etched on a wall instead of faces at a table. Some came home only to find they couldn't fit back into a world that hadn't changed while they had. The myth leaves that part out, because it's inconvenient. Reality doesn't. Reality makes you live with it every day. The myth says the war ended in 1975. The reality is it never ended for the men who fought it. It followed them into bedrooms, into offices, into quiet dinners where a sudden noise shattered the illusion of peace. It followed them into nightmares, into arguments, into bottles drained too fast. It followed them when they tried to explain and no one listened, when they tried to forget and couldn't, when they tried to go back and realised there was no back to go to. The myth says Vietnam was just a chapter in history, a section in textbooks, a movie genre, a political talking point. The reality is it was years stolen from young men who aged decades in jungles that didn't care. It was lives cut short, lives reshaped, lives carried forward like scars no one else can see. It wasn't history. It was lived, minute by minute, step by step, blister by blister. And the biggest difference between the myth and the reality is this. Myths end neatly. Reality doesn't. The war doesn't stop when you come home. It doesn't stop when the politicians sign papers. It doesn't stop when the last helicopter lifts off from a rooftop. The reality is the war keeps going, inside the men who lived it, inside the memories they carry, inside the way they sit with their backs to walls and keep boots by the bed. The reality doesn't end. You know this because you were there, because you can still smell the napalm when you close your eyes, because you can still hear the helicopters, because you can still feel the mud sucking at your boots, the sweat dripping into your eyes, the letter crumpled in your pocket. The myth belongs to everyone else. The reality belongs to you, and it never lets you go. And that's the thing. You could read all the books, watch all the movies, listen to all the speeches, and you still wouldn't really know what it was like unless you'd carried the rucksack, sweated through the uniform, swatted at the mosquitoes, and waited in the dark with your rifle across your chest. Vietnam wasn't a headline or a lesson in a classroom. It was mud, fire, exhaustion, and the kind of memories that never really let go. If you've made it this far tonight, thanks for sticking with me. I hope this walk through the past gave you something new to think about, or maybe just kept you company long enough to let the day drift away. If you enjoyed this, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you want more, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I always love seeing how far this little corner of the internet reaches. Now take a deep breath. Let it out slow. Let your shoulders relax. You're not in the jungle. You're not in the heat. You're not carrying anything heavier than the weight of your own blankets. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let the sounds fade. Let the pictures drift away. And give yourself permission to finally rest. Good night.